Chapter 4873. Kong Shinmu continued to devour the flame power that surrounded him, and continuously increased his resistance to the flame attribute power. Finally, not long after, the circle of flame power around Kong Shinmu's black dragon body finally approached Kong Shinmu's black dragon body, and it came crashing down, burning the void along with it. At this time, Kong Shinmu's black dragon body had already displayed the divine dragon tyrant body technique's defensive posture, and the power of the Great Compassion Sky Dragon Seal had completely erupted. This Great Compassion Sky Dragon Seal was equivalent to the activation of 1,200 defensive battle runes, and it increased Kong Shinmu's defensive ability by more than 8 times. This was because he had become more compatible with the Great Compassion Sky Dragon Seal. If Kong Shinmu could be completely compatible with the Great Compassion Sky Dragon Seal, he could even make the Great Compassion Sky Dragon Seal increase his defense by 12 times. He was still a little far from being completely compatible, but for now, it was enough. Jiang Shenwu and the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal were unleashed, and the entire body of the Black Divine Dragon was in its strongest defensive state. The circle of flames suddenly came crashing down. Do I need to activate it? No. I should be able to resist it. Jiang Shenwu was currently pondering whether or not he needed to use the other 2 brilliant transformation abilities of the Great Sorrow Heavenly Dragon Seal. Using either of these 2 brilliant transformation abilities would make his strength stronger. If he used both, although he could not overcome the gap between him and Murong Lieni, he could at least resist a part of her attack. But after thinking about it, Kong Shinmu did not use it. Most importantly, he felt that he could not defeat Murong Lieni even if he used it. There was no need to, and he had also exposed his hidden cards. It would be fine if he could defeat his opponent, but unfortunately, the gap between their foundations was too big, and Kong Shinmu could not possibly be a match for Murong Lieni. In that case, I'll block it if I can, but if I can't, I'll just admit defeat. Kong Shinmu thought to himself, and his body began to be roasted by the void flames. The terrifying flame power burned on his body, and then the dragon scales on his body became increasingly fragile in the burning. Kong Shinmu was seriously injured. However, he did not die on the spot. His vitality was still too strong. I admit defeat. Kong Shinmu calmly admitted defeat. Even though Murong Lieni's attack had hit him hard and his body looked scorched black, his expression didn't change at all. He was too steady. Such a heavy injury was not fatal to Kong Shinmu. In fact, the pain it brought to Kong Shinmu was not enough to make him frown. This willpower was too strong. After the flames burned out, Kong Shinmu's black dragon body suffered such heavy damage, but he still didn't frown. Murong Lieni couldn't help but sigh. This boy's willpower was really terrifying. This made Murong Lieni want to cooperate with Kong Shinmu even more. Now it seemed that Kong Shinmu's battle strength was not strong, but once the grade of Kong Shinmu's Divine Dragon Inheritance blood was upgraded, his battle strength would become extremely strong, super strong, unbelievably strong. This was determined by willpower. In many cases, practitioners like Kong Shinmu who practiced body-refining dragon martial arts were most afraid of pain. They had already experienced a lot of pain in the process of cultivation, and became more sensitive in battle. Of course, compared to ordinary practitioners who practiced body-refining dragon martial arts were more resistant to pain. This was certain and inevitable, but it also depended on the person. Even among all the practitioners who practiced body-refining dragon martial arts, Kong Shinmu was one of the most resistant to pain, and his willpower was the strongest. When Kong Shinmu decided to admit defeat, he directly flew out of the arena. It could be seen that he was seriously injured. If others suffered such a serious injury, they might not even be able to participate in the following arena battles. But for Kong Shinmu, this injury was nothing. This was just one attack from Murong Lieni. If she used some combat weapon to enhance this attack, Kong Shinmu really couldn't resist it. This was because Kong Shinmu had swallowed a lot of fire attribute power, and after strengthening his resistance to fire attribute power, he also used the defensive effect of the Great Compassion Dragon Seal. If any of these factors were missing, Kong Shinmu would have been burned to ashes. But when Kong Shinmu left the arena, Murong Lieni smiled and said, "Kong Shinmu, I will wait for you in this arena. I believe that you should have room for improvement. Good luck." The biggest taboo for continuous breakthroughs was not having the opportunity to consolidate and master the power, but now this arena battle was the best opportunity to improve and master the power. After just a few arena battles, Kong Shinmu had basically completely mastered the power that he had previously broken through continuously. Even if he hadn't completely consolidated it before, now after the battle with Murong Lieni, he had completely mastered the power. So, if Kong Shinmu wanted to become stronger, he could only continue to break through the cultivation realm. Soon, Kong Shinmu floated back to the Dragon God's spectator seats while using the devouring power to swallow the power of the demon cores to recover. He still had a lot of demon cores that he hadn't swallowed, so he could completely swallow them to recover. After swallowing these demon cores, his injuries actually recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. By the time he returned to the spectator seats of the Dragon Gods, his injuries had almost healed. Kong Shinmu, the demon god race has sent a request. They want you to help Xueqi recover? When Kong Shinmu returned to the spectator seats, Emperor Shi Divine Dragon suddenly sent a secret message that surprised Kong Shinmu. Help Xueqi recover? Kong Shinmu was a little surprised. He finally remembered that Xueqi had been seriously injured by the black dragon demon of the demon god race, and this black dragon demon seemed to be very hostile to Kong Shinmu. No matter what, Xueqi was still a member of the royal family of the demon god race. She might even be Xueqi's older sister, so it wasn't a big deal to help her. The key was, why would Emperor Shi Divine Dragon allow him to cooperate with the demon god race and help them? It seemed that the dragon gods and the demon god race had indeed allied together. And looking at the current situation, the ancient Phoenix clan also had the intention of winning over Kong Shinmu. Now that Kong Shinmu belonged to the dragon gods, winning over Kong Shinmu meant that they wanted to be on good terms with the dragon gods. There was no doubt about this. For the dragon gods as a whole, this was not a bad thing. Among the major races, even if it was only a temporary alliance, it was still very good. And before this, the alliance with the dragon gods was only a shallow one, and there was not much cooperation between them. But now it was not necessarily so. Chapter 4874. Kong Shinmu returned to the office of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy in the Longgu Fortress. Xueqi was now arranged to be in a training ground in the office. He was watched over by a supreme expert of the demon god race. Soon, Kong Shinmu came to the training ground under the guidance of Yu Yaji. Xueqi is seriously injured and unconscious. The demon god clan heard from somewhere that you have the ability to heal people quickly, so they asked you to come and help. For this, they are willing to pay half of the rewards that the demon god clan received in the arena battles. As Yu Yaji spoke, she covered her mouth and chuckled. Kong Shinmu, if you really have this ability, I hope you won't be stingy. Everything that the demon god clan gave us will be given to you as a reward. In other words, the dragon god clan did not get any benefits, and all the benefits were directly given to Kong Shinmu. This surprised Jiang Shenwu a little. However, this was good as well. It was obvious that both sides did not want that little bit of reward. These rewards were nothing to supreme experts. For the demon god clan, the key was to let Xueqi continue to participate in the arena battles. This was very important to Xueqi. Xueqi was a super genius cultivated by the royal family of the demon god clan, so her development path could not be ignored. For the dragon god clan, it was obvious that the demon god clan had a clear intention to cooperate with the dragon god clan because of Kong Shinmu. The appearance of this intention to cooperate would greatly reduce the overall pressure that the dragon god clan faced, so this was obviously beneficial to the dragon god clan. Moreover, they had received a more preliminary information about a mid-level relic, but the dragon god clan did not know the specifics. Anyway, as long as there was a chance for the dragon warriors to participate, it would be fine. If the demon god clan cooperated with the dragon god clan, they would definitely not let the dragon god clan miss this opportunity. Even if they wanted to invite Kong Shinmu, they could not just invite Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu followed Yu Yaji to the training ground below the office. He saw Su Ye's 16-winged heavenly demon god. Under the fierce attack of the black dragon, the body of the 16-winged heavenly demon god had been severely burned. A supreme expert was squatting beside Xueqi in human form. This person was dressed in a black robe, and his entire person seemed to have an indescribable temperament. This temperament made this supreme expert seem incomparably powerful, and it was difficult for others to approach. This was the aura. Emperor Shi's mystical dragon also had the aura of a supreme expert. However, they were both from the Dragon God clan, so the aura of Emperor Shi's mystical dragon didn't have much pressure on Kong Shinmu. But in front of him, The aura of this supreme expert from the demon god race was extremely oppressive to Kong Shin-mu. Junior Kong Shin-mu greets Senior. Junior Yu Yaji greets Senior. Yu Yaji and Kong Shin-mu bowed at almost the same time. Forget it. This time, I'll leave Xueqi to the two of you. The voice of the supreme expert was very calm. It sounded like he was casually telling a story. It didn't bring any pressure to them, but his own aura always existed, and it wasn't something he could control. Immediately afterward, the supreme expert from the demon god race, dressed in a black robe, retreated to the side and disappeared into the space. Obviously, he didn't want to interfere with Kong Shin-mu's treatment. At this moment, after the supreme expert from the demon god race disappeared, it was as if he didn't exist. His aura actually disappeared. It seemed that if he wanted the supreme expert's aura to disappear, he had to hide himself in the void. This was a supreme expert's concealment method, and it wasn't something that the current Kong Shin-mu could discover. Therefore, he didn't hesitate. He directly transformed into his black dragon body and went to the side of Su Ye's 16-winged heavenly devil body. His devouring power had already condensed and emerged. He directly swallowed a demonic core that came from a void beast. This demonic core came from a supreme god-level void beast, and supreme god-level void beasts were considered very strong war beasts in the demon god race. Kong Shin-mu directly swallowed this devil core. Obviously, the hidden supreme expert also knew very well where Kong Shin-mu's devil core came from. There was a special relationship between Kong Shin-mu and Xueqi. At this moment, after Kong Shin-mu swallowed the devil core's power, the devil core turned into the purest power and flowed through Kong Shin-mu's entire body. Then, this purest power was transferred by Kong Shin-mu to the 16-winged heavenly devil body with his devouring power. Kong Shin-mu had discovered this kind of transfer healing method a long time ago and could use it. There were almost no side effects. At this moment, when it was used, it immediately began to treat Su Ye's serious injuries, and the effect was extremely obvious. Of course, Kong Shin-mu's transfer healing ability was not omnipotent. Su Ye's injuries were not light. If he wanted to treat her, it would be much more difficult than treating his own injuries of this degree. Kong Shin-mu only flew back from the arena to the spectator stand to recover from his injuries. This was because he only needed to devour the power to recover himself. However, if he wanted to treat Xueqi, he still had to go through the process of transfer, so it was certain that his speed would be slow. Next, Kong Shin-mu used more than a day to treat Xueqi. After a day, Xueqi finally woke up from her coma. The 16-winged heavenly devil form was removed, and she returned to a beautiful silver-haired woman wearing a black queen's robe. She fell into Kong Shin-mu's arms just like that. After all, Kong Shin-mu had been sticking to her 16-winged heavenly devil body and transferring power to her. Now that she had returned to her original form, she directly fell into Kong Shin-mu's arms. This also surprised Kong Shin-mu, but he was not too surprised. Instead, he looked at Su Ye's appearance and found that Xueqi indeed looked a bit similar to Xueqi. In front of Yu Yaji, Kong Shin-mu did not ask any questions. Instead, when he saw Xueqi slowly opening her eyes, he shouted towards the void, "Senior of the demon god race, Su Ye's injuries have been completely healed. She will wake up soon." Kong Shin-mu originally planned to tell the other party that he could take her away, but he did not expect that his words would not receive a response. On the contrary, after Xueqi slowly opened her eyes, Kong Shin-mu's figure was reflected in her black pupils, causing her thin lips to slightly curl up. "Kong Shin-mu, did you help me?" Xueqi stretched lazily in Kong Shin-mu's arms and slid out of his arms. Her body was extremely agile. However, the feeling of hugging her was still there, causing Kong Shin-mu to blush. Chapter 4875. I did help you, but the supreme senior of your demon god race seems to be gone. I wanted him too. Kong Shin-mu shook his head and smiled. He didn't think too much about Xueqi. Xueqi might be Xueqi's elder sister or something. If something happened between them, it would be troublesome. Moreover, Kong Shin-mu couldn't think too much about such things in such a situation. Xueqi looked around and realized that they were in an underground training ground. It should be somewhere in the martial dragon fortress, so there was no need to worry about its safety. There was no one else in the entire training ground except for the two of them, except for Kong Shin-mu. This scene now looks very ambiguous. Xueqi covered her mouth and chuckled. She looked at Kong Shin-mu and said, Your healing ability is really strong. My sister is really lucky. Alright, do you want to return to the arena with me? Have you consolidated your power? Kong Shinmu suddenly asked. It was obvious that if Su Ye's power had not been fully consolidated, she wouldn't be able to defeat an opponent like the Black Dragon Demon even if she returned to the arena now. It was easier said than done to obtain one of the final 16 spots in the arena battle. Not yet. Why don't we spar? Su Yi was rather interested in sparring with Kong Shinmu. Before she was injured, she still saw the scene of Jiang Shunwu blasting the expert from the turtle tribe of the sea god race out of the arena. That ability was really too strong. She really wanted to know what level Kong Shinmu was at now. Was he really stronger than her? Can you show me that power that can change time? Su Yi was very curious about this. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu shook his head and said, "We can spar. However, I can't use that power to devour time against you, because that power has a side effect. After I devour time, that part of his time will be completely lost. I don't know what it feels like, but it definitely won't be a good feeling. Moreover, it seems that there will be other side effects after your time is devoured, so I don't plan to use it on you." The biggest side effect was that one's ability to comprehend time would decrease. It wasn't obvious at the moment, but once one reached the supreme level and needed to comprehend the power of time, the side effect would appear. If he couldn't comprehend it, or if he lacked the comprehension of time, he wouldn't be able to reach the next level. At that time, if his cultivation stagnated, that would be the most tragic thing. Therefore, Kong Shinmu would never use the demonic dragon of ice and fire's ability on his own people. Right now, Su Yi could be considered one of them. Hearing Kong Shinmu's words, Su Yi could only suppress his curiosity. Alright, in that case, let's practice. Have you completely consolidated your strength? Yes, I'm almost there. This time, I want to make a breakthrough before going on stage. With my current strength, I'm no longer strong enough to fight against a level 9 Emperor stage expert. Kong Shinmu nodded. Then you should make a breakthrough first. I'll protect you. When you're done, we can practice together and consolidate our strength. What do you think? Su Ye's suggestion made Kong Shinmu think about it. Then he nodded. Right now, Su Yi was already at the level 9 reincarnation state, but Kong Shinmu was only at the level 7 reincarnation state. If he could break through to the level 8 reincarnation state, Kong Shinmu's strength would be even stronger, and it wouldn't affect his time conversion efficiency after devouring time. Therefore, right after that, Kong Shinmu tried to make a breakthrough in this training ground. Right now, his devouring space stored too much power, including the Dragon Mark's energy and the world's spiritual energy. Therefore, if he wanted to make a breakthrough, he could basically do it at any time. Most importantly, after obtaining the Heaven and Earth Holy Grade, he received too many rewards, which could completely satisfy all his cultivation needs at this stage. Right after that, a dark cloud appeared in the training ground, as well as the first reincarnation beast. Of course, when the first reincarnation beast appeared, it was directly smashed into pieces by Kong Shinmu. Smashing it into pieces with one move was nothing to Kong Shinmu. Then, the pieces of the reincarnation beast gathered in Kong Shinmu's body, allowing his reincarnation power to be refined for the first time. Right after that, the second reincarnation beast appeared. The strength of the second reincarnation beast was much stronger than the previous one. If Kong Shinmu hadn't been able to consolidate his strength, he might not have been able to defeat this reincarnation beast. However, right now, he could use his full strength to kill this second reincarnation beast. Jiang Shunwu's devouring power was completely unleashed. As he devoured the Samsara Behemoth's attacks, he attacked the Samsara Behemoth at the same time. The 9th stage Extreme Dao Cheetah Dragon Burst, a high-class divine spiritual dragon martial technique, continued to erupt. In the training ground, the second Samsara Behemoth was forced to retreat. Finally, after Kong Shinmu used the Roaring Dragon Explosion 10 times in a row, the outer layer of the reincarnation beast's defense was completely devoured by the Roaring Dragon Explosion. Then, it was blasted into pieces by the Roaring Dragon Explosion. This series of battles made Su Ye's eyes light up. Clearly, she recalled the time when she had broken through to this realm. At that time, her combat strength hadn't been this strong. However, because the grade of the demon god's inheritance blood hadn't been this high, the reincarnation beast's strength had been much weaker. At that time, it had been very difficult for her to deal with it. She had used many techniques to defeat the second reincarnation beast. However, right now, Kong Shinmu seemed to be able to deal with it easily. Of course, Kong Shinmu had also used the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal and the Phantom Ghost Book. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to defeat the Reincarnation Beast. When the second Reincarnation Beast was defeated, Kong Shinmu started to break through. He broke through from the 7th stage of the Reincarnation Realm to the 8th stage of the Reincarnation Realm. Furthermore, he had condensed the Reincarnation power twice. This was equivalent to an ordinary cultivator breaking through twice. When he finally broke through, Kong Shinmu felt that he had become stronger. However, there was still a long way to go before he could defeat Murong Lieni and Huang Yun, who were top-notch experts at the 9th stage of the Martial Emperor realm. Come, let's exchange pointers and consolidate our strength. Kong Shinmu waved at Xueqi. This was the home ground of the dragon martial artists. Thus, no one could know that the two of them were sparring. Chapter 4876. In the training field, Kong Shinmu and Xueqi sparred with each other while holding back. Neither side used their heaven-grade divine dragon weapons or heaven-grade rage god demonic weapons. After all, this was just a sparring session, not a real battle. Their intention was only to consolidate their strength. Kong Shinmu was consolidating his strength after breaking through to the 8th level of the Samsara realm. This breakthrough was a little difficult, but he had destroyed the second Samsara behemoth as quickly as possible. Otherwise, he would have missed the arena battles. But now, the arena battles would last for a total of 3 days. Kong Shinmu spent a day to treat Su Ye's injuries and another half a day to break through. In the end, there was still more than a day left. Even if both sides consolidated and mastered their strength through sparring, there would still be a lot of time left. Even if it was only the last 2 hours, it was enough for them. Of course, they had to ensure that they had the strength to defeat experts like the Black Dragon Demon, Huang Yun, and Murong Lieni. Kong Shinmu and Xueqi continued sparring. In the training field, the 16-winged Heavenly Fiend Celestial and the devouring Black Dragon constantly exchanged blows, erupting with endless devouring power and the power of the 16-winged Heavenly Fiend Celestial. Kong Shinmu rather admired Su Ye's combat strength. Her combat strength was very strong, and her fighting posture was very elegant. The slender body of a 16-winged Heavenly Fiend Celestial looked very attractive. However, the ancestral demonic consciousness constantly commented during the sparring session. Some of Su Ye's methods and the process of condensing power were still flawed. Kong Shinmu was not stingy and directly gave Xueqi pointers. One had to know what was in Kong Shinmu's consciousness? The ancestral demonic consciousness. And this ancestral demonic consciousness was the original body of a 16-winged Heavenly Fiend Celestial. As for Xueqi, and even the entire royal family of the Fiend Celestial race, they were not real 16-winged Heavenly Fiend Celestials. They had only inherited the bloodline of a 16-winged Heavenly Fiend Celestial. So who knew more about the inheritance of a 16-winged Heavenly Fiend Celestial? Obviously, Kong Shinmu knew better. This was also the reason why, under the guidance of the ancestor of the demon god, Kong Shinmu, with the body of the demon god of the 16-winged heavenly demon god, was able to exert a combat power that was even stronger than that of the dragon god clan. Because of the demon god ancestor's teachings, Kong Shinmu could completely unleash the full power of a 16-winged demon god. As for Xueqi and the others, although they could already control at least 80% of the inheritance of the 16-winged heavenly Fiend Celestial, if they had the guidance of the Fiend Celestial ancestor, their battle prowess would increase by at least 50%. This was a huge improvement. In the process of exchanging pointers, Kong Shinmu was not stingy in giving pointers to Xueqi. These pointers made Xueqi incomparably surprised. He did not expect that Kong Shinmu actually had such a deep understanding of the 16-winged heavenly demon god's inheritance. This simply subverted Su Ye's understanding. Then Su Ye's eyes lit up. Obviously, the appearance of Kong Shinmu was really a great help to the demon god clan. Obviously, once all the members of the royal family could receive the help and guidance of Kong Shinmu, then the strength of the entire royal family of the demon god clan would more than double. This was too terrifying. Even the supreme powerhouse of the demon god clan, who was hidden in the dark, also revealed his figure at this time. In the shadows, a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. Very quickly, his expression changed to one of sudden realization and enlightenment. The various things that Kong Shinmu said were integrated into the use of his own power, making him a lot stronger all of a sudden. Of course, There were not many things that Kong Shinmu said that were targeted at the Supreme Powerhouse. There was not much inspiration for the Supreme Powerhouse, but that was only because the person that Kong Shinmu was giving pointers to was Xueqi, not the Supreme Powerhouse. If Kong Shinmu specifically gave pointers to the Supreme Powerhouse of the royal family of the Demon God clan, at least their combat strength could be rapidly improved. These were problems that the royal family of the Demon God clan had studied for a long time but could not solve. Some of the inheritors of the 16-winged heavenly demon god could not maximize the speed and power of the mobilization and condensation of power, so some special methods were needed. This special method was naturally researched by the royal family, but it was not the best method. Now, what Kong Shinmu was talking about was the best method. Therefore, the things that Kong Shinmu said now made Xueqi and the supreme powerhouse of the Demon God clan feel enlightened. They changed their understanding and tried according to what Kong Shinmu said. Xueqi found that her power had increased by at least 30%. This was still not the most perfect state, and this gave her even more confidence in the upcoming arena battles. As for the supreme powerhouse, there was not much improvement. After all, what Kong Shinmu said was only for the Demon Emperor level, but it also gave him a lot of inspiration. Maybe he could infer something useful for the supreme powerhouse. At least for the younger generation of the royal family of the Demon God clan, it was very important. It could improve the overall combat strength of the younger generation of the royal family of the Demon God clan. Therefore, the way that the supreme powerhouse looked at Kong Shinmu became completely different. It was a look of finding a treasure. This supreme powerhouse of the Demon God clan had already regarded Kong Shinmu as a treasure. He was a very important figure to the royal family of the Demon God clan. I must rope him in well. The supreme powerhouse of the Demon God clan thought in his heart. Xueqi did not think so much. Although she was shocked, Xueqi's most important thoughts were on the arena battle. She had previously improved the grade of the Demon God's inheritance blood essence 3 times in one go, so she needed to consolidate more power than Kong Shinmu. At this moment, after sparring with Kong Shinmu and being guided by Kong Shinmu, she found that her power was quickly and completely consolidated. After all, Kong Shinmu was now evenly matched with her, and the sparring between her and Kong Shinmu was between strangers. There was a sense of novelty and honor. After all, no one wanted to lose, and no one wanted to use more tricks. Kong Shinmu did not use the illusory ghost book and the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal, and Xueqi did not use her Heaven-grade Desolate God demonic weapon. Obviously, her Heaven-grade Desolate God demonic weapon was more numerous than Kong Shinmu's Heaven-grade Saint Spiritual Dragon weapon, and the quality was better. After all, she came from the authentic royal family of the Demon God clan. The cultivation resources she had were definitely more than Kong Shinmu. Chapter 48-77. After the sparring session, both of them had improved a lot. After Kong Shinmu broke through to the 8th level of the rebirth state, a large part of his strength had not been consolidated. However, after the sparring session with Xueqi, he had already consolidated about half of it. This made Kong Shinmu much stronger. At the very least, if Jiang Shenwu were to encounter that expert from the turtle tribe of the sea god race again, he wouldn't need to attack for 5 days to break through his defense. He only needed to attack for 1 or 2 days. Of course, if he did not use the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire, he would not be a match for the turtle tribe powerhouse. The main thing was that he could not break through his defense in a short period of time. However, this was only temporary. At least when Kong Shinmu fully grasped the power of the 8th level of the rebirth state, he could use the full power of the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal to block the Sea God's Tempest attack from the Turtle Tribe powerhouse. Even if it was an attack of that level, Kong Shinmu could face it head-on. Of course, the main thing was to use the full power of the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal. Don't forget that when Kong Shinmu bought the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal from the Treasure Pavilion, he had used it 3 times. The first time was with the Shocking Gemstone, which increased the effect of the 800 defensive battle runes within it by 50%. Then there were 2 special times. This was an extremely wasteful move in the eyes of ordinary people. After all, although a heaven-rank holy spiritual dragon weapon was at the peak of the Dragon Emperor stage, it was nothing to a supreme god-rank cultivator. Therefore, it could be said that it was a bit of a waste to transform a heaven-grade Saint Spirit Dragon weapon multiple times. Not to mention that Jiang Shenwu used the most precious materials every time he transformed the Saint Spirit Dragon weapon, which could increase the power of the Saint Spirit Dragon weapon to the maximum. In this battle, Kong Shinmu did not use the second and third times of the Phantom Ghost Book and the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal. This was in order to fight for one of the 16 spots in the arena battles, and even in the later elimination battles. If Kong Shinmu were to use all these methods, he would definitely be able to defeat Xueqi. Of course, Xueqi might also have a similar powerful origami demonic weapon. No matter what, Kong Shinmu's true combat power was much stronger than what he had shown so far, and so was Xueqi. After all, Xueqi was already at the 9th level of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm. As for Kong Shinmu, he was only at the 8th level of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm. If he wanted to defeat people like Huang Yun and Murong Lieni, who were also at the 9th level of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm, he would be at an absolute disadvantage in this aspect. Of course, Kong Shinmu had other advantages, such as the devouring power and the power of the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire. These two powers were his main trump cards. If he used them well, he could turn the tide of the battle at a critical moment. See you in the arena. I hope we can make it to the end. Xueqi and Kong Shinmu looked at each other and smiled. Then, they left the office of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy in the Longgu Fortress. It was the supreme powerhouse of the Demon God clan. He brought them through the void and appeared at the spectator seats around the 16 arenas. He also brought Xueqi and Kong Shinmu with him. He and Xueqi returned to the Demon God clan, while Kong Shinmu was sent to the spectator seats of the Dragon God clan. Yu Yaji had already left. Now that she saw Kong Shinmu appear, she smiled and said, "Kong Shinmu, is everything going well?" "Yes, it feels good." Kong Shinmu smiled and nodded. There are only 8 hours left before the arena battles end. Yu Yaji nodded and said, "Kong Shinmu, you still have 2 chances to attack the arena. In other words, you still have 1 chance to lose. Of course, you don't have to force yourself. After all, you are only at the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor. The gap between you and the 9th level is too big. It's normal that you can't win. No matter what, your performance in the arena battle this time is already very amazing." Kong Shinmu heard this and immediately shook his head. He said to Yu Yaji, "Dean, this is not my goal. I hope to be one of the last 16, and I hope to continue moving forward in the elimination battles. So, my goal this time is to be number 1. Regardless of whether I can achieve it or not, I have to do my best. Anyway, I won't die so easily. Don't you think so?" Hearing Kong Shinmu's words, Yu Yaji simply didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This boy Kong Shinmu. It really wouldn't be easy for him to die. Moreover, it was on such an arena. Last time when he was defeated by Murong Lieni of the ancient Phoenix clan, he calmly left the arena despite being seriously injured. From the start, it didn't seem like his life was in any danger. So, there was no need to worry too much about Kong Shinmu's safety. However, if he really suffered a serious injury, it would be more troublesome. For example, Kong Shinmu had experienced the same injury when he participated in the civil war between 2 Dragon Emperor countries. Of course, that was because the opponent Kong Shinmu faced at that time far surpassed his strength at that time. It was also in that battle that Kong Shinmu met Xiao Yuhua and Xiao Bai and became good friends with them. This kind of thing basically didn't happen anymore, because even a 9th level emperor would not be able to reach the strength of an opponent that he had faced at that time. After Kong Shinmu returned, he first greeted Xiao Bai and ran. Then, he began to observe the situation on the arena. There were about 8 hours left until the final moment. It was far from the time to attack the arena. Basically, the last hour was the time when all the major arenas would fight for the right to attack. This is the arena battle of the 9th level emperor. It won't be as easy as before to snatch the right to attack the arena at the last moment and be the first to enter the arena. Among the 9th level emperor practitioners, at least 30% of them have a sufficient understanding of the void power and can travel through the void. Although they may not be able to travel through the void continuously like me, I may not necessarily have an advantage in snatching the right to enter the arena. So, I still have to go up early. Anyway, I have a lot of hidden tricks up my sleeves. If I go up early, I can devour some energy to strengthen my divine dragon body's resistance. That way, the following battles will be easier. Previously, Kong Shinmu had completely crushed his opponents. However, now that he was in the 9th level emperor stage, he had to use his strongest move. This move was not the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's move, as others had thought. It was his ultimate move, the power of devouring. Chapter 4878. Devouring power was Kong Shinmu's strongest technique. When he couldn't contend against his opponent, he could only display the strongest aspect of his devouring power. What was worth mentioning was that as his divine dragon inheritance blood essence and his cultivation realm continued to improve, the nature of his devouring power became stronger. His devouring speed and intensity were at least 5 times stronger than before. This allowed him to completely devour some of his opponent's attack power and turn it into his own. Moreover, it could also devour some special things, such as defensive energy barriers, and even some void energy. The chaotic heaven devouring dragon's devouring power was passed on to Kong Shinmu, allowing him to devour all kinds of energy and objects. This was Kong Shinmu's ultimate trump card. As long as the opponent's strength was similar to his, he could devour it. The only difference was his devouring speed. Therefore, even if Kong Shinmu couldn't get first place in the 9th level of the Emperor Grade Arena, he could at least get into the top 4. He needed to get this ranking. This was because only by doing so would he be able to display his value and create more benefits. Not only for himself but also for the people around him. They, including the members of the Devouring Dragon group that had just been formed and were still growing, were especially in need of cultivation resources. It was impossible for Kong Shinmu to use the reward of the 9 heavenly engraved sacred grade to support himself and the Devouring Dragon group for the rest of his life, right? He had to obtain more cultivation resources. Therefore he had to win, or at least get into the top 4 in order to create enough value. Kong Shinmu observed the situation in the arena for a while. He hadn't been here for almost 2 days and there were some changes in the arena. First, the Black Dragon Demon, the Demon God Clan expert who had severely injured Xueqi, was no longer in the arena. It seemed that he had been defeated. However, this was normal. This was within Kong Shinmu's expectations. After all, the Black Dragon Demon didn't look like the type who could fight for long periods of time. It was impossible for him to last for so long. Then, Kong Shinmu observed the many opponents in the arena and finally decided to attack. He was going to make a move because he might not be able to seize the opportunity to enter the arena in the end. So he had to first gain a firm foothold in the arena. According to his observation and the information that Xueqi had just told him, he knew that there were no more than 5 experts at the same level as Murong Lieni and Huang Yun in this 9th level of the Martial Emperor realm. However, those who were weaker than them, such as Shangguan Dai Tan Shouzhua, and Chu Yueqiang, numbered in the hundreds. If he wanted to become one of the 16, he would definitely have to go through an intense fight. Kong Shinmu thought that although he couldn't compare to Murong Lieni and Huang Yun, he already had a way to defeat experts at the level of Shangguan Dai and Chu Yueqiang. As long as he was given a chance, it would be fine as long as they didn't instantly kill him. However, with Kong Shinmu's current strength, it was almost impossible for them to instantly kill him. Therefore, Kong Shinmu directly chose an arena. On that arena, there was a 1,000-winged snake clan expert at the 9th level of the Emperor stage. However, this 1,000-winged snake clan expert was currently heavily injured. He had just blasted an opponent from the Sea God clan out of the arena, and that opponent was even more heavily injured. According to Kong Shinmu's estimation of their strength, they should be slightly weaker than Shangguan Dai and Chu Yueqiang. Therefore, Kong Shinmu decided to directly enter the arena. As it turned out, there were already people eyeing this arena. It was obvious that the 1,000-winged snake clan expert and the Sea God clan expert had both suffered heavy injuries. Wouldn't it be a good opportunity to enter the arena now? Therefore, when Kong Shinmu planned to directly enter the arena, he discovered that someone had already beaten him to it. That person was really fast. It was a void human expert who appeared on the arena. Without saying a word, he directly condensed a void god totem and swept it towards the blue body of the 1,000-winged snake clan expert. Void storms erupted in all directions, enveloping the 1,000-winged serpent's blue serpent body. Although the 1,000-winged serpent was already heavily injured, he still managed to react in time and unleashed some defensive techniques. These defensive techniques were filled with blue starlight. The innate ability he possessed was the power of the stars. This was one of the inheritance powers of the 1,000-winged snake clan, and it was the inheritance of the star divine snake. It was said that the 1,000-winged snake clan was inspired by the ancient serpent god and obtained the inheritance bloodline. The star divine snake was a kind of divine snake clan under the command of the ancient serpent god. The body of the star divine snake clan expert emitted blue starlight, And then the starlight condensed into a beehive-like existence that enveloped and defended his body. When the void human expert condensed countless void storms in the surroundings and bombarded it, the blue star beehive-like defense shattered unexpectedly. Hee, you're really an arrow at the end of its flight. You're already heavily injured, so what strength do you have to resist my attack? The void human tribe powerhouse sneered. However, before he could make his next move, his eyes suddenly widened. He discovered that the blue starry beehive's defense had shattered like a mirror. Moreover, within the blue star beehive-like defense, the body of the star divine snake expert had actually disappeared. When the void human expert launched his attack, the thousand-winged snake clan expert had already reacted. He created a blue star beehive-like defense to confuse his opponent, and then he appeared behind the void human expert's void god totem. The thousand-winged snake clan expert didn't show the slightest mercy. Starlight erupted from his body and condensed into the image of a huge blue python. It was like a blue star that emanated terrifying starlight. The gigantic blue python wrapped itself around the virtual human tribe's virtual god totem. Then, the starlight on it actually had some sort of disintegrating power and started to disintegrate the translucent body of the virtual human tribe's virtual god totem. The void human expert didn't even have time to use any defensive techniques before he was completely coiled up by the huge blue python and started to disintegrate. In just a moment, the void human expert's void god totem was disintegrated into pieces. So the void human expert could only admit defeat unwillingly. Chapter 4879. He had actually failed to challenge the heavily injured thousand-winged snake tribe powerhouse. The void human tribe was utterly humiliated. After admitting defeat, he immediately left the arena. However, he did not plan to leave the arena immediately because he still had a chance to challenge the powerhouse from the thousand-winged snake tribe. He planned to come back and challenge the powerhouse from the thousand-winged snake tribe again. His opponent was already heavily injured, yet he still could not defeat him. If he did not get back at him, it would be too humiliating. This was the advantage of the void human tribe. Even if the empty god totem they had condensed was destroyed, it would not affect them and would not cause them to be heavily injured. It was just that they would not be able to condense the empty god totem again in a short period of time. Kong Shinmu also had the inheritance of the void human tribe. The inheritance he cultivated was called the Clear Sky Void Luo inheritance. Although it was not comparable to the inheritance of a 16-winged heavenly demon god among the void human tribe's inheritance, it was still an extremely powerful top-notch inheritance. At the very least, it was of a higher level than the inheritance of the void human tribe in front of him. Of course, it was impossible for Kong Shinmu to use the inheritance of the void human tribe in this arena battle. After the void human tribe powerhouse admitted defeat and left the arena, Kong Shinmu, who had transformed into a black dragon, immediately entered the arena and continued to challenge the heavily injured thousand-winged snake tribe powerhouse. The thousand-winged snake tribe possessed the inherited power of the star divine snake, which was the power of the stars. This was a good entry point for Kong Shinmu. He had observed quite a bit. In this arena battle, there were many cultivators who used the power of the stars. He would devour some of the power of the stars first. Perhaps it would be useful in the future. After Kong Shinmu entered the arena, many people in the surroundings immediately sneered. Kong Shinmu had been easily defeated by Murong Lieni and had admitted defeat with serious injuries. Now, he actually came into the arena again? There were still 8 hours until the final moment. In that case, Kong Shinmu should not have come into the arena. He wanted to fight in the arena until the final moment. In other words, he just came up to test his strength? It seems like this so-called genius of the Dragon God tribe really does not know his own strength. In my opinion, that bastard from the Sea God clan is too useless. He was actually seriously injured by this kid. His ability to devour time is indeed terrifying. However, our patriarch said that as long as we are on guard against that ability of his, there is nothing to fear about this Kong Shinmu. Now that we know, we will absolutely not give him any chance. However, this fellow might not even be able to deal with the heavily injured thousand-winged serpent, right? Amidst the discussions of the crowd, after Kong Shinmu ascended the arena, he directly charged towards the thousand-winged snake clan's expert who possessed the star divine serpent's inheritance. The thousand-winged snake race discovered that the one in front of him was actually a black dragon. Moreover, it was said to be a very powerful existence in the dragon god race. It had participated in 2 consecutive arena battles. All of a sudden, he displayed incomparable vigilance. The power of the stars all over his body began to condense. First, it condensed into the blue star honeycomb-shaped defense barrier from before. Previously, his blue star honeycomb-shaped defense barrier was an illusion. Now that he condensed it again, the spectating practitioners all felt like laughing. It was fine to use such a method once. Even if it was Kong Shin-mu, it was impossible for him to fall for it again when he clearly knew that it was an illusion, right? However, to everyone's surprise, Kong Shin-mu's black dragon body did not hesitate at all. It directly swept towards the blue star honeycomb-shaped defense barrier. Kong Shin-mu's entire body emitted a black devouring power. Then, he released the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique's defensive stance. The Great Sorrow Heavenly Dragon Seal's defensive patterns were completely activated. Golden light shone on the outermost layer. Like a black gold divine dragon, he directly rushed towards the blue honeycomb-shaped defense barrier. Then, the devouring power began to devour the defense barrier condensed by the power of the stars. Right now, Kong Shin-mu only wanted to devour the power of the stars. Why would he care if the opponent was an illusion or something else? Even if it was an illusion, it was an illusion that contained the power of the stars. He could completely devour it and use it to strengthen his resistance against the power of the stars. So when Kong Shin-mu directly devoured the star honeycomb-shaped defense barrier, he actually discovered that it was not an illusion? Right at this moment, the 1,000-winged serpent race's blue astral divine serpent appeared in front of Jiang Shenwu at the center of the astral beehive-shaped defensive barrier that had a hole devoured. He asked in surprise, "How do you know that this isn't an illusion?" "What? Illusion? I don't know. Anyway, no matter what it is, I just need to destroy it, right?" Kong Shin-mu was a little speechless. He really didn't know that his opponent was actually this kind of person who played mind games. It seemed like this 1,000-winged snake race's star divine snake inheritor had also used a similar defensive technique before. Moreover, it was a real defensive technique and not an illusion. In the previous battle, the Void Human Tribe powerhouse had been completely tricked by him. He didn't expect that this 1,000-winged snake race fellow would actually play it for real this time. It was not an illusion. He was trying to make Kong Shin-mu think that this was an illusion and then divert his attention in another direction. Then, this 1,000-winged snake race fellow would launch a surprise attack on Kong Shin-mu. How sinister! Unfortunately, all of this was seen through by Kong Shin-mu. Or rather, it should be said that he had seen through it. He had accidentally seen through his opponent's plan and directly started to devour the opponent's star honeycomb-shaped defense barrier. This caused the 1,000-winged snake race fellow to be somewhat shocked. At the same time, he was also somewhat angry. Wasn't Hua Yuhao looking down on him a little too much? Even though he was now seriously injured, he didn't want to be defeated by Kong Shin-mu just like that. He was constantly on guard against Kong Shin-mu using the heavenly deficient demonic ice and fire dragon's ability to attack him. Therefore, a part of his attention was diverted. The star elemental power gathered and surged toward Kong Shin-mu. However, he didn't know that Kong Shin-mu had no intention of using the heavenly deficient demonic ice and fire dragon's power in this battle. He knew very well that this power would not be effective once his opponent was on guard. Since that was the case, there was no need to use it. He might as well use other powers and directly kill his opponent. I've almost devoured the star elemental power. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Kong Shin-mu's resistance to the star elemental power had almost reached its peak. He continuously devoured his opponent's star elemental attacks. Then, the powerful defense of the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal prevented him from suffering any damage. In that case, it's about time to throw this fellow out of the arena. Both Kong Shin-mu and the 1,000-winged snake race fellow were thinking the same thing. After all, he was seriously injured and the time it took for an incense stick to burn was almost up. Since he was constantly on guard against Kong Shin-mu's attacks, he hadn't used his full strength to attack Kong Shin-mu. Chapter 4880. The time it took to burn a stick of incense was almost up. Kong Shin-mu planned to blast the 1,000-winged Snake Clan fellow out of the arena, and he did it immediately. The 1,000-winged Snake Clan fellow also happened to want to attack Kong Shin-mu with all his might at this moment. Unfortunately, his movements were slightly slower than Kong Shin-mu's. The power of Kong Shinmu's 9th stage ultimate Drake explosion had already exploded beside his opponent through the concealment of the illusory ghost book and the power of the void battle runes. At this moment, his opponent had almost no defensive power around him, because he also wanted to attack Kong Shinmu with all his might. This caused the 1,000-winged Snake Clan Star Divine Snake to be blasted out of the arena by Jiang Shenwu's 9-fold Hydralisk explosion. Moreover, the 1,000-winged Snake Clan Star Divine Snake's injuries worsened, and they became extremely serious. At the same time, Kong Shinmu's resistance to the power of the Star Divine Snake had reached its peak. Now that he had devoured the power and strengthened his resistance to the Divine Dragon Body, it could last for an entire day. In other words, he could maintain such a strong resistance to the power of the Star Divine Snake Body until the end of the arena battle. In this state, even if he relied purely on the strength of the Divine Dragon Body, he would be able to resist the attacks of any level 9 Martial Emperor Realm Star Divine Snake Body. Of course, this did not include the attacks of top-notch powerhouses like Huang Yun and Murong Lianyi. Under such an attack, Jiang Shenwu would still be seriously injured. Therefore, he still had to use other methods to withstand it. The main thing was the additional brilliance of the Great Sorrow Heavenly Dragon Seal. After Kong Shinmu blasted the 1,000-winged Snake Clan fellow out of the arena, the virtual human clan powerhouse from before entered the arena again, intending to challenge Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu, right? You defeated the 1,000-winged Snake Clan cultivator just now. Now, your opponent is me. The virtual human clan powerhouse was very displeased. He had just lost to the 1,000-winged serpent clan cultivator due to his carelessness, but immediately after that, Kong Shinmu went up the stage and blasted the 1,000-winged serpent clan cultivator out of the ring. Moreover, it seemed like he didn't feel any pressure at all. Wasn't this telling others that he was no match for Kong Shinmu, who was only at the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Gods? Although the Turtle Tribe powerhouse from the Sea God Tribe had already suffered the most, the Void Human Tribe powerhouse still didn't believe that Kong Shinmu had the ability to defeat him. He wouldn't give Kong Shinmu any chance to use the power of devouring time. As soon as he appeared on the stage, he immediately unleashed his strongest void energy. Void Crushing Technique. This was a peak Void God martial technique. When the Void Suppression was unleashed, the Void God Totem condensed behind him. It was thousands of feet tall and emitted waves of void energy that pressed down on Kong Shinmu. At this moment, Kong Shinmu felt the void around his Divine Dragon Body enter a state of collapse. Moreover, it began to press down on his Divine Dragon Body. This power was extremely powerful. If this fellow had used this technique against the 1,000-winged Snake Clan powerhouse just now, the 1,000-winged Snake Clan powerhouse definitely wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Unfortunately, the Void Human Tribe powerhouse had fallen into the opponent's illusion trap. Now, the Void Human Tribe powerhouse was even more pitiful. As the Void Suppression moved toward Kong Shinmu, it was immediately met with the full defense of the Great Compassion Sky Dragon Seal. Kong Shinmu maintained a defensive posture from head to toe. His defense had already reached the most terrifying level. At the same time, the devouring power continued to spread toward the surroundings. In the black fog, the void energy that was constantly pressing down on Kong Shinmu was completely devoured by Kong Shinmu's devouring power as soon as it got close. Then, the remaining void energy bombarded Kong Shinmu's Great Compassion Sky Dragon Seal and was directly blocked. The entire space above the arena seemed to tremble. However, Kong Shinmu's entire black dragon body remained unmoved. In other words, Kong Shinmu's Divine Dragon Body looked a little distorted from the outside of the arena. However, that was only what people saw and not what actually happened. In reality, Kong Shinmu wasn't injured at all. The people outside could see that his Divine Dragon Body was distorted because the attack of the Void Human Tribe powerhouse had distorted the void around him. Under such a strong attack, very few people could resist it. Even if powerhouses like Huang Yun and Murong Lianyi appeared, they wouldn't be able to resist it head-on. Instead, they would choose to temporarily avoid it. However, Kong Shinmu chose to resist it head-on. His black dragon body looked a little distorted from the outside. However, in reality, he was constantly devouring the spatial attribute power around him to strengthen his Divine Dragon Body's resistance against the void attribute power. As time passed, the Void Human Tribe powerhouse continued to attack Kong Shinmu with the Void Suppression technique. He was a little shocked. If he were to unleash such a terrifying attack on himself, he probably wouldn't be able to last more than 3 breaths of time. He was a cultivator who prioritized the strength of his attack. In his entire life, he had cultivated Void God martial skills with the strongest power as his top priority. Therefore, no one in the same realm as him could resist the strength of his attack. However, Kong Shinmu had resisted his void suppression technique. One had to know that he had repeatedly used the void suppression technique at least 10 times. The power of the overlapping void suppression technique was more than 10 times stronger than a single void suppression technique. However, Kong Shinmu had still resisted it. Moreover, he didn't seem to be affected at all. What he didn't know was that when his void suppression technique hit Kong Shinmu's body, most of the power was devoured by Kong Shinmu's devouring power. After Kong Shinmu devoured the void attribute power, his resistance against the void attribute power instantly became stronger. As Kong Shinmu's resistance against the void attribute power became stronger, the power of the void suppression technique basically didn't affect Kong Shinmu's divine dragon body too much. This was all because after Kong Shinmu's great compassion dragon seal was illuminated by the sky-shocking gemstone, the power of the void suppression technique was simply too terrifying. After Kong Shinmu cultivated the body-refining dragon technique, his defensive state had truly become an impenetrable fortress. However, the Void Human Tribe powerhouse didn't expect this at all. Moreover, as his void perception wasn't strong, he really didn't sense that his attack actually had no effect on Kong Shinmu. Chapter 48-81. Under such circumstances, after Kong Shinmu devoured enough void attribute energy, he finally decided to throw his opponent out of the arena. Then, while the surrounding void was still being crushed, Kong Shinmu suddenly used the wind shadow flowing cloud flash. His perception of void attribute energy was a whole level higher than his opponent's. As such, his opponent was unable to stop him from escaping through the collapsing void. By the time the Void Human Tribe powerhouse realized what was happening, the ninefold Thunder Dragon explosion had already exploded behind him, sending him flying out of the arena. His empty god totem was shattered once again. This time, the empty god totem wasn't that easy to recover. Previously, it only took him an incense stick's time to condense it again. This time, it would take at least 4 to 6 hours. Regardless of whether he had more chances to attack the arena or not, by the time his void god totem could condense again, it would be less than 2 hours before the final moment arrived. By then, all 16 arenas would be filled with elites. This kind of guy definitely wouldn't be able to stand firm. In other words, this guy was no longer fated to participate in the arena battles. Furthermore, this guy's performance in the 2 arena battles had been terrible. Hopefully, this guy wouldn't be traumatized by the arena battles after he went back. However, even if this guy was traumatized by the arena battles, what did it have to do with Kong Shinmu? Kong Shinmu didn't even consider this question. When he sent the virtual human tribe powerhouse flying again, the cultivators around the arena who were preparing to attack the arena all became a little nervous. Unknowingly, they realized that this young genius of the dragon gods from the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor realm was even more terrifying than many old fellows who were over 100 years old when he fought. This willpower and decision-making ability in battle was not something a simple youth could possess. However, there would still be people who would continue to challenge Kong Shinmu. After all, Kong Shinmu was only a 6th level Emperor stage expert. Could it be that so many 9th level Emperor stage experts couldn't defeat a 6th level Emperor stage expert? That would be too embarrassing for them. Or rather, wouldn't they be letting this 6th level Emperor stage kid gain too much face? They definitely couldn't let the dragon gods run wild. Unfortunately, there were a total of 7 people who challenged Kong Shinmu, and each of them had mastered 5 different elemental powers. Among them, there were lightning elemental power, fire elemental power, ice elemental power, darkness elemental power, and gale elemental power. Kong Shinmu had devoured all 5 types of energy, allowing him to reach the highest level of resistance against these 5 types of energy. This was to prepare for Kong Shinmu's final battle in the arena. As for his 7 opponents, they were all blasted out of the arena by his 9th stage ultimate flood dragon explosion. Disregarding everything else, Kong Shinmu's current strength had been continuously consolidated over the past few battles, and he had complete control over it. When he used the Voidwalker Ghost Scroll to unleash the 9 Extreme Dao Roaring Dragon explosion, his opponent had already been bombarding him for the time it took for an incense stick to burn, and was almost completely exhausted. At this moment, Kong Shinmu made his move again. His opponent was unable to resist at all and was directly thrown out of the arena. After 7 battles, Jiang Xinwu's presence on this side had even caused some people to feel a little frightened. This kid was really powerful. A mere 6th level Emperor stage martial artist was actually able to defeat 9 9th level Emperor stage martial artists in a row. It seemed that without the help of some relatively strong people, there was no way to defeat Kong Xinmu. Kong Xinmu's performance also caused the experts of the various races to whisper. This strength was too terrifying. Especially the demon gods, they shook their heads. Even Xueqi probably couldn't achieve such a strong strength, right? But soon, when there were a little more than 2 hours left, Xueqi also entered the arena. This time, Xueqi, of the demon god race's royal family, had completely mastered and consolidated the strength that she had obtained from her previous consecutive breakthroughs. Moreover, because of Kong Xinmu's guidance, her combat strength had increased in many aspects. Although it was only in the aspects of combat strength, when all of it was combined, it increased her combat strength by at least 50%. Furthermore, she began to directly use her desolate god demonic weapons. Just as Kong Xinmu expected, she did not have 2 desolate god demonic weapons, but 4. Each of these 4 weapons had different functions. When she reached a very high level of compatibility with these 4 desolate god demonic weapons, she could completely unleash the powerful strength of these 4 desolate god demonic weapons. In just one battle, she displayed a strength that almost surpassed Kong Xinmu's. This kind of combat strength made many people of the demon god race feel incredulous. Wasn't Xueqi only at the 4th level of the Emperor stage previously? How did he have the combat strength of a 9th level Emperor stage martial artist now? Moreover, there were many 9th level Emperor stage martial artists at that. If the previous Xueqi was still not a match for Shangguan Dyer when she did not use the divine dragon weapon, then the current Xueqi could even fight Shangguan Dyer with her full strength. Furthermore, she would not necessarily be at a disadvantage. This kind of improvement happened after Xueqi was seriously injured by the Black Dragon Demon and then mysteriously recovered. Such a fast recovery speed inevitably made people think of Kong Xinmu. Unfortunately, no one could imagine that Kong Xinmu and Xueqi actually had some communication. On this point, the Dragon God race and the Demon God race both kept it a secret. It was impossible for this kind of thing to be directly announced. Otherwise, the other races present would definitely unite and target the 2 races. After Xueqi displayed such terrifying battle prowess in his first battle, even Huang Yun, Murong Lieni, and the other top experts were a little taken aback. They did not know how Xueqi suddenly increased his combat strength by so much. The main reason was because Huang Yun was still relatively familiar with Xueqi. He also had a good understanding of how strong Xueqi's combat strength would be after his improvement. But now, Xueqi's performance had already exceeded his expectations. In fact, it was far beyond his expectations. What exactly was going on? Wan Lu, the genius of the heavenly calamity demon god's inheritance, Huang Yun, narrowed his eyes and carefully observed Xueqi's next battle. Thus, he very quickly discovered that Xueqi's increase in combat strength seemed to be related to the inheritance power of the 16-winged heavenly demonic god. The inheritance power of the 16-winged heavenly demonic god that she erupted with seemed to be much stronger than before. This was also the reason why her overall combat strength had increased dramatically. But how was this possible? Chapter 4882. No one expected Xueqi's battle prowess to suddenly skyrocket. All of this was beyond everyone's expectations, except for the supreme demon god expert who went with Xueqi and received guidance from Kong Xinmu. Only he knew the reason. This also made the supreme demon god expert feel even better about Kong Xinmu. No matter what, Kong Xinmu had done the demon god race a great favor this time. Moreover, Kong Xinmu's strength was of great help to the entire demon god race's royal family. It was said that the 16-winged heavenly demon god ancestor's consciousness of the demon god race's royal family was following Kong Xinmu. This was only a guess among the royal family. After all, the 16-winged heavenly demon god ancestor's consciousness had not been extinguished. It had always been in the royal family's sacred relic, and it had not shown anything. It only showed that it was somewhat obedient to Xueqi's instructions. Now that the sacred relic had lost the consciousness of the demon god ancestor, no one knew where it was. Only a few high-ranking members of the royal family guessed that it might be in Kong Xinmu's mind. However, Kong Xinmu was clearly not the demon god race's inheritor. It was said that Kong Shinmu also had the power of the 16-winged heavenly demon god's inheritance. This was something that many members of the royal family could not imagine. But no matter what, if this was brought by the demon god ancestor's consciousness to Kong Shinmu, then the demon god race's royal family must be respectful to Kong Shinmu. After all, facing Kong Shinmu was very similar to facing the demon god ancestor. That was the source of the 16-winged heavenly demon god's inheritance, and it determined everything for the royal family. In the past, the demon god race's royal family could not communicate with the demon god ancestor's consciousness, so they did not know that the demon god ancestor's consciousness could give them some pointers. Now that Kong Shinmu had given them pointers, if this was true, perhaps the entire demon god race's royal family must be respectful to Kong Shinmu. This guy was not a simple dragon martial artist. There were too many things hidden behind him. And this was something that the demon god royal family could not possibly reveal to others. If people knew that the dignified royal family of the demon god race, the power inherited by the 16-winged heavenly demon god, needed guidance from a boy from the dragon god race, wouldn't that make people look down on the demon god race? In the arena, Xueqi continued to unleash her strongest power. Even her desolate god demonic weapon was unleashed. Just as Kong Shinmu had expected, Xueqi had 4 desolate god demonic weapons, and they were all existences that had shone twice. Although he didn't shine 3 times like Kong Shinmu, the total number of times he shone was 8, which was 2 times more than Kong Shinmu's 6 times. It was clear that in terms of equipment, Xueqi also surpassed Kong Shinmu. What's more, she was already at the 9th level of the rebirth tribulation realm. She was already in existence at the 9th level of the reincarnation tribulation realm, so compared to Kong Shinmu, she had a huge advantage. Now, she was constantly unleashing her power, fighting against the cultivators of the various races that had ascended to her arena. Apart from the dragon god race, the other races would basically go up to try, and those who went up to try were all experts at the 3rd level of the emperor stage. The so-called 3rd level of the emperor stage referred to those in the 1st level like Huang Yun, Murong Lieni, and Shangguan Dai Chu Yueqiang, Black Dragon Demon, and others in the 2nd level. These experts were very strong, at least reaching the level of the turtle tribe expert of the sea god race. And the turtle tribe expert of the sea god race could be killed by Kong Shinmu, but that was a true trick, not true strength. If he relied on true combat power, the current Kong Shinmu would have a hard time dealing with him, unless he could use all the dazzling abilities of his heaven-level divine dragon weapon. However, there was no need to do so on the arena. Kong Shinmu planned to save some of these methods for the elimination battle to deal with the experts of the 2nd level. There were probably more than 100 experts of the 2nd level. With so many people wanting to obtain one of the final 16 spots on the arena, there would definitely be a fierce battle. Even if Kong Shinmu hadn't reached the elimination battle, he might still use some of his dazzling abilities. Of course, he wouldn't use all of his dazzling abilities. At this moment, Xueqi and Kong Shinmu were both dealing with the 3rd level of the 9th level of the Emperor stage. When there was only 1 hour left, the 3rd level of the 9th level of the Emperor stage finally didn't dare to attack them. And as the time was almost up, finally, a 2nd level of the 9th level of the Emperor stage expert ascended to Kong Shinmu and Xuye's arena. On Kong Shinmu's side, he was directly facing the Demon God Clan expert who had previously injured Xueqi, the Black Dragon Demon's inheritor. This Black Dragon Demon's inheritor's strength was extremely terrifying, even reaching the level of Shangguan Dai and Chu Yueqiang. It was an elite peak 9th level Emperor stage expert, second only to Huang Yun and Murong Lieni. Huang Yun, Murong Lieni, and the other 3 peak 9th level Emperor stage experts all had the combat strength of a super divine dragon. And just below the 5 of them were Shangguan Dai Chu Yueqiang, Tan Shouzhua, and more than 100 other peak 9th level Emperor stage experts. Simply put, Gu Xinyue was also in existence on the same level as Huang Yun and Murong Lieni. And Kong Shinmu's current combat strength was about the same as Shangguan Dai and the rest of the 2nd level. If Kong Shinmu's divine dragon inheritance blood essence could achieve another breakthrough, then it was very likely that he could reach the level of Gu Xinyue, Huang Yun, and Murong Lieni. Of course, there was no need to think about it now. Kong Shinmu had to first defeat the opponent in front of him, this Black Dragon Demon's inheritor, a 2nd-level genius from the Demon God tribe. This Black Dragon Demon's combat strength was very strong, and it was savage. It did not hold back against Xueqi, and directly injured Xueqi. Therefore, Kong Shinmu did not dare to be careless. He planned to use some kind of dazzling ability already. At this moment, the black dragon demon stepped onto the stage that Kong Shinmu was on. It had transformed into a black dragon demon, and its entire body emitted a pitch-black hue. This pitch-black hue was the power of the darkness attribute. To Kong Shinmu, he had already absorbed enough of this darkness attribute energy in the previous battles. His defense was very strong, but he still could not underestimate this black dragon demon's inheritor. The pitch-black hue, the darkness attribute energy, under the black dragon demon's control, turned into countless black dragon claws, and surged towards Kong Shinmu. In just a moment, the entire stage was filled with countless black dragon claws. This was the method that he used to injure Xueqi, and its offensive power was extremely terrifying. Chapter 48-83. The 800 defensive battle runes of the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal completely erupted with the power of golden light at this time. Under the defense of the golden light, Kong Shinmu directly resisted the countless black dragon claws of his opponent with his physical body. When the black dragon claws came crashing down, their power was unable to completely penetrate Kong Shinmu's defense. Kong Shinmu's body-refining dragon-type martial arts technique was extremely strong. Although the black dragon claws bombarded his black dragon body, causing some damage and even tearing some blood-red scars, such injuries were nothing to Kong Shinmu at all. This meant that Kong Shinmu's ordinary defense had reached a very strong level, at least able to resist the level of the black dragon's attack. This might be the strongest attack of the black dragon's inheritor without the use of the demon weapon. The ferocious black dragon's inheritor was a little surprised that Kong Shinmu withstood such a wave of attacks, but it was obvious that the black dragon didn't stay stunned for too long. He directly released two of his top demon weapons. These two top demon weapons formed a set and could actually burst out a stronger power when combined. There were hundreds of offensive battle runes in each demon weapon, and when activated together, it was enough to increase his attack by 10 times. 10 times the attack descend. Kong Shinmu watched as the opponent's black dragon claws condensed more and more, and they contained a stronger and more terrifying power as they descended from the sky and swept towards him. At this time, he didn't fight the opponent head-on. Instead, when the black dragon claws swept over, he directly used the wind shadow flowing flash and flashed towards an empty and remote place in the arena. Traversing the void. Dodging the attack. When Kong Shinmu used this move, the black dragon's inheritor opposite him sneered. Immediately after, the black dragon claws that flooded the space where Kong Shinmu was just now gathered into a more vast dragon claw power and chased after Kong Shinmu's current position. These black dragon claws actually had a tracking function. Now, let's see where you can run to. This black dragon demon inheritance was extremely confident in his own strength. The two sets of top-notch demon weapons that he brought out and the power that erupted from the black dragon claw was a kind of power that could track. If they were in the outside world, Kong Shinmu might be able to escape. But on the stage, there was no possibility of his attack failing. Seeing this, Kong Shinmu's expression froze. He could only activate the Great Sorrow Sky Dragon Seal and use its ability to defend himself. Other than the Great Sorrow Heavenly Dragon Seal, Kong Shinmu had also spent tens of thousands of gold dragon coins to purchase two other materials from the treasure pavilion. One of them was called the Brilliant Ruby Stone. Once the Brilliant Ruby Stone was transformed into a dragon weapon or a battle weapon, it would possess a special ability. It could completely block any attack for a certain period of time. Hence, this Brilliant Ruby Stone was extremely expensive. Moreover, many super divine dragon weapons might not even have such a Brilliant Ruby Stone successfully transformed into a dragon weapon. Kong Shinmu had experimented with the Brilliant Ruby Stone's ability. When activated, it could indeed block any attack. Moreover, the shopkeeper of the treasure pavilion had also reminded him that although the Brilliant Ruby Stone's ability could completely block all attacks for a certain period of time, depending on the strength of the attack, the Brilliant Ruby Stone's ability needed a certain period of time to recover. If the blocked attack was too strong, then the next time the Brilliant Ruby Stone's ability could be used, he would have to wait for a very long period of time. However, after Kong Shinmu's experiments, he didn't need to wait for the Brilliant Ruby Stone's ability to recover. All he needed to do was to use the Devouring ability and transfer the devoured energy to the Brilliant Ruby Stone. This was an ability that belonged to him alone. If other people's Brilliant Ruby Stones were to block an attack of the same level, they would probably need 7 days to recover. However, for Kong Shinmu, to block an attack of the same level, He only needed to devour the energy of the opponent's attack to recover the Brilliant Ruby Stone. Brilliant Ruby Stone, release! At this time, Kong Shinmu had no other choice but to use the power of the Brilliant Ruby Stone in the face of the Black Dragon Goblin's countless tracking attacks from the Black Dragon Goblin's inheritor. Then, on the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal, the power of the Brilliant Ruby Stone directly burst into a golden light. Under the shroud of the golden light, the 800 defensive battle patterns of the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal were completely activated. Although the Brilliant Ruby Stone could completely block any attack, in reality, there was still a limit to its block, and the limit was the defensive strength of the dragon weapon that it had illuminated. Therefore, the Brilliant Ruby Stone could only illuminate a defense-type battle weapon. The Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal was already the strongest defense-type battle weapon at the Emperor level. After being illuminated by the Brilliant Ruby Stone, its defense had increased by 50%. All of these led to the fact that Kong Shinmu's Brilliant Ruby Stone could at most block an attack from a peak Super Divine Dragon powerhouse. Of course, in that case, the power of the Brilliant Ruby Stone might not be able to be used for at least a year. However, at critical moments, it was indeed a very useful illumination ability for Kong Shinmu. At this moment, as Kong Shinmu faced the countless tracking Black Dragon claws, the power of the Brilliant Ruby Stone exploded. It turned into a golden light curtain of power, directly blocking the power of the Black Dragon claws. It was a given that he could block it, because this was the strongest power that could block the peak power of a supreme god-level powerhouse. As for the principle of the Brilliant Ruby Stone, Kong Shinmu knew a little about it. There was always a lot of power in the void, and the Brilliant Ruby Stone could completely release the defensive battle patterns of the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal, allowing these defensive battle patterns to absorb power from the void without limit until they reached the upper limit that these defensive battle patterns could withstand. In the current situation, that was equivalent to reaching the peak of the supreme god-level power. It could withstand an attack of this level. Therefore, the attack of the Black Dragon Demonic Beast Inheritor in front of him could not break through Kong Shinmu's defense at all. Moreover, Kong Shinmu also released the devouring power at the same time, continuously devouring the power of the opponent's Black Dragon claws. A part of it was blocked by the Brilliant Ruby Stone, while the other part was devoured by Kong Shinmu. Then, the devoured power was directly transferred to the Brilliant Ruby Stone, helping it recover its power. Then, the Brilliant Ruby Stone could be used again. This was the most heaven-defying aspect of Kong Shinmu. His defense could almost be said to be invincible. Of course, this was also because the opponent's attack was just enough to balance Kong Shinmu. Chapter 48-84. Currently, Kong Shinmu had a lot of monster elixirs and devil elixirs in reserve. He could easily absorb the lowest level monster elixir to offset the loss. Therefore, at least with the strength of the Black Dragon Goblin Inheritor's attack, he could not pose any threat to Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu could activate the power of the Brilliant Gemstone without limit. When Jiang Shenwu's Brilliant Ruby Stone was unfolded, the Black Dragon Goblin Inheritor and many practitioners who were watching the battle from the outside exclaimed in disbelief at the same time. This was the Brilliant Gemstone. Many people knew about the existence of the Brilliant Gemstone. Its defensive limit was far beyond one's own strength. Therefore, the Brilliant Gemstone was a kind of life-saving gemstone. After being transformed by the Brilliant Gemstone, the defensive dragon weapon was a life-saving measure in a desperate situation. This was relatively common in battles between transcendent gods, but, in battles between martial emperors, it was very rare. This was because many martial weapons that could be used by martial emperors didn't have strong defensive abilities. If they weren't top-notch, the Brilliant Glory Gemstone wouldn't be of much use. Not only was the limit of its resistance too low, but it was also mainly because the interval between its use was too long. Only top-notch dragon weapons could be used. It's the Brilliant Gemstone. I didn't expect this guy to have such a treasure. The Black Dragon Goblin Inheritor was not afraid. After all, according to everyone's understanding, even if it were to resist the all-out attack of an opponent of the same level, the Brilliant Gemstone would probably need 3 to 7 days to recover. This recovery time also determined that Kong Shinmu could not use the Brilliant Gemstone a second time in the arena battle. Wasn't it a waste to use the precious Brilliant Gemstone to resist the attack of the Black Dragon Goblin Inheritor? It could be seen that Kong Shinmu was at his wit's end. Even if you have the Brilliant Gemstone, so what? You should be desperate now. The Black Dragon Goblin Inheritor unleashed all his strength and continued to condense black dragon claws that could track. They swept towards the place where Kong Shinmu was. These black dragon claws almost tore the void apart, containing unparalleled destructive power. Kong Shinmu did not move in the face of this attack. But when the black dragon claws reached Kong Shinmu's great compassion dragon seal once again shone with golden light. Then, the power of the brilliant gem was released. The golden light barrier blocked the black dragon claws, and the devouring power devoured the black dragon claws from the side. Kong Shinmu then transferred the energy that he had devoured back to the brilliant gem. This scene caused the black dragon demon inheritor to be dumbfounded, and he stood rooted to the ground. What was going on? As long as Kong Shinmu had the ability to activate the brilliant gemstone without limit, he would not be able to do anything to Kong Shinmu. How could this lad activate the brilliant gemstone again so quickly? According to common sense, the activation of the brilliant gemstone needed at least 2 hours, and that was after blocking the power that did not pose a threat to him. Was the attack power of his tracking black dragon claws so weak? It could not make the power of the brilliant gemstone fall into a state of recovery and dormancy? Damn it, what's going on? The black dragon demon inheritor could not believe such an abnormal thing. Some of the surrounding cultivators who were observing also could not believe it. Even the supreme powerhouses had shifted their attention here. If this situation continued, the black dragon demon inheritor was almost bound to lose. As long as Kong Shinmu continued to defend, and with Kong Shinmu's nature-defying recovery ability, the black dragon demon inheritor would probably still be at his peak when all his power was used up. This was too terrifying. Such a terrifying defense made the black dragon demon inheritor despair. But the black dragon demon inheritor immediately thought of a possibility. This lad might have used 2 brilliant gemstones on his defensive dragon weapon? Because there are 2 brilliant gemstones, the 2 brilliant gemstones can be used interchangeably. If they are used interchangeably, he can successfully confuse his opponent. The black dragon demon inheritor forced himself to calm down. Then he planned to condense another black dragon claw to test Kong Shinmu, but, before he could perform the demonic martial skill again, the power of Kong Shinmu's 9th layer ultimate dragon explosion had already sneaked up on him from the void and exploded beside his black dragon demon body. The black dragon demon inheritor was stunned. In fact, Kong Shinmu's sneak attack this time was launched almost at the same time as his opponent's second attack. When Kong Shinmu unleashed the power of the brilliant gemstone for the second time, he had already activated the power of the illusory ghost book at the same time. With the power of concealment and void, he swept the power of the 9th layer ultimate dragon explosion to his opponent's back. Then, just as the black dragon demon inheritor finished analyzing and figured out that Kong Shinmu might have 2 brilliant gemstones, the power of the 9th layer ultimate dragon explosion erupted from behind him. The black dragon demon inheritor was completely unprepared and was directly attacked by the sneak attack. Fortunately, as a regular demonic cultivator, the black dragon demon inheritor's demonic body's defense was not weak. If this was a fierce battle outside, this sneak attack would not have caused the black dragon demon inheritor to lose. Unfortunately, this was an arena battle. Kong Shinmu's sudden attack of the 9th layer ultimate dragon explosion directly blasted the black dragon demon inheritor out of the arena. This black dragon demon inheritor had already attacked the arena twice before. This was the 3rd time and also the last time. In the end, he actually encountered Kong Shinmu and suffered a sneak attack from the brilliant gemstone and Kong Shinmu. He did not expect that his entire black dragon demon inheritor would be directly blasted out of the arena and lose the right to continue participating in this arena battle. When the black dragon demon inheritor was blasted out of the arena, everyone present was in an uproar. This was too terrifying. Was Kong Shinmu's combat power really that strong? Even the black dragon demon inheritor was blasted out of the arena and lost his last chance to attack the arena. Speaking of which, when some people saw the black dragon demon inheritor on the arena, they thought that Kong Shinmu would lose to the black dragon demon inheritor. After all, the black dragon demon inheritor had directly injured Xueqi. Logically speaking, Kong Shinmu and Xueqi should be at the same level, right? But now, Kong Shinmu directly blasted the black dragon demon inheritor out of the arena. Unleashing the power of the brilliant ruby stone twice had truly shocked everyone in the surroundings. This was way too horrifying. It was simply going against all logic. Immediately, many people thought of the same possibility as the black dragon demon inheritor. However, no one knew what the truth was. Now, No one knew whether Kong Shinmu really had the brilliant gemstone of 2 brilliant gemstones. Although this kind of thing was relatively rare, it was still possible. Chapter 4885. After the Black Dragon Demon's inheritor was blasted out of the arena by Kong Shinmu, no one came to challenge Kong Shinmu in a short period of time. This was because it seemed that Kong Shinmu still had a lot of hidden tricks up his sleeves. Before Kong Shinmu used all of his tricks, the second-tier level 9 Emperor stage experts didn't want to directly bump into Kong Shinmu's muzzle. As for the third-tier cultivators, even though they were all level 9 Emperor stage experts, there was still a huge gap between them. They couldn't even beat the Black Dragon Demon, let alone Kong Shinmu, who had blasted the Black Dragon Demon out of the arena. And now on another arena, Murong Lieni saw this scene and smiled with some satisfaction as she shook her head. She originally wanted to wait for Kong Shinmu to come back and directly challenge her. Then, she would return this arena to Kong Shinmu. However, after Kong Shinmu came back, he didn't challenge her, but directly challenged another arena. He didn't accept her kindness. However, this was also the pride of a genius. Kong Shinmu was confident that he could keep his position in another arena, so he didn't need to return to this arena. This also saved Murong Lieni the number of times she had to attack the arena. After all, if she gave the arena under her feet to Kong Shinmu, she would have to find another arena to challenge. This meant that she had one less opportunity to attack the arena. Although for a top expert like her, one less opportunity to attack the arena didn't affect anything, it was better to save as much as possible. Who knew if there would be an accident later on? At this moment, no one came to challenge Kong Shinmu's arena. Murong Lieni, Huang Yun, and the others' arenas were also unchallenged. Almost among the 16 arenas, only about half of the arenas were still fiercely fighting. This included Su Ye's arena. The Black Dragon Demon's inheritor had a brother. When he saw that the Black Dragon Demon was blasted out of the stage by Kong Shinmu, he immediately went to Su Ye's stage to challenge him. His brother's strength was about the same as the Black Dragon Demon's inheritor, but when he fought with Su Yi, he was actually suppressed by Su Yi. One had to know that Su Yi was seriously injured by the Black Dragon Demon inheritor. How did he become so much stronger in such a short time? He might even have become twice as strong as before. This was because Su Yi had received Kong Shinmu's guidance after she was seriously injured. Her strength had also been consolidated, which made Su Ye's overall combat strength double than before. This was already not too much. This also allowed Su Yi to blast the Black Dragon Demon inheritor's brother out of the arena once again. Among the 16 arenas, Jiang Shenwu and Su Ye's arenas had actually quietened down. This undoubtedly shocked everyone in the surroundings. No one had expected that no one would dare to challenge a 6th-layer Martial Emperor and a 7th-layer Martial Emperor. However, it had to be said that Kong Shinmu and Su Ye's battle strength was extremely strong. Soon, when there were only 2 hours left, Shangguan Dai'er, Tan Shouzhua, Chu Yueqiang, and the other 9th-level Emperor stage Martial Emperors of the 2nd tier all attacked the arenas. There were a total of over 100 2nd-tier Martial Emperors. Each of them was about as strong as Shangguan Dai'er and the others. Among them, there were about 10 or so Martial Emperors from each of the major clans. The Black Dragon Demon's inheritor and his brother were 2 of them. Unfortunately, one was blasted out of the arena by Kong Shinmu and lost his chance. The other was blasted out of the arena by Su Yi and also lost his chance to continue attacking. Some people had already used up their 3 chances to attack the arena. They had been enjoying themselves for a moment, showing off their prowess on the arena. In the end, they were beaten down by a stronger opponent and wasted their chances to attack the arena. Now, they no longer had a chance, and there was nothing they could do about it. Who asked them to be so arrogant? Moreover, they were confident. The Black Dragon Demon's inheritor originally thought that his strength was enough to make him one of the final 16. Therefore, he directly challenged Kong Shinmu and planned to defend the arena until the end. Unfortunately, he was directly blasted out by Kong Shinmu. There was no need to mention how angry this fellow was. He wanted nothing more than to tear Kong Shinmu into pieces. However, he was the one who attacked Kong Shinmu. Who could he blame if he couldn't beat Kong Shinmu? Time continued to pass. Many people didn't even make a move in the first 3 days, but in the last 2 hours, they jumped out and specifically chose weaker opponents to fight in the arena. As for Kong Shinmu, he finally met a new opponent. First, it was a powerhouse from the Sea God tribe, and then a powerhouse from the Devil King tribe. Unfortunately, the strength of these two powerhouses was similar to that of the Black Dragon Demon's inheritor. Although they were very strong, Kong Shinmu still used all kinds of methods to blast them out of the arena. Kong Shinmu didn't continue to use any more powerful methods. He didn't use the brilliant gem, nor did he use the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire. He purely relied on his devouring power to exhaust his opponent to death. His opponent didn't have the ability to track an attack like the Black Dragon Demon's inheritor. Kong Shinmu directly dodged on the arena. When his opponent's strength was almost exhausted, he directly attacked and blasted his opponent out of the arena. Although no special methods could be seen, Kong Shinmu's performance in these two battles was very stable. It was equivalent to fighting steadily and surely, not giving anyone the opportunity to see how many abilities he had left. There was no doubt that no one could figure out his situation. Now the 5 peak 9th level Emperor Realm powerhouses, including Huang Yun and Murong Lieni, each occupied an arena and didn't enter the arena. They were paying attention to their surroundings, but none of them wanted to attack Kong Shinmu and Xueqi. In their eyes, opponents were only at the same level. For example, Huang Yun and Murong Lieni had a certain degree of antagonism and competition between them. The super powerhouses of the other 3 races were the same. Therefore, they really didn't care about Kong Shinmu and Xueqi. Even if they directly came up and knocked Kong Shinmu and Xueqi out of the arena, it was only their second time attacking the arena. They still had one more chance. Therefore, it was almost useless for them to knock Kong Shinmu and Xueqi out of the arena. Moreover, even if they entered the elimination round of the arena battles, they basically posed no threat to the 5 of them. At least that was the case for now. The gap between the 5 of them was too big. Of course, some people had already noticed that Kong Shinmu had used the brilliant gem twice. If they wanted to attack Kong Shinmu and Kong Shinmu used the brilliant gem, they wouldn't be able to break through Kong Shinmu's defense. Chapter 48-86. Under various adjustments, no one came to challenge Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu had already defeated 3 second-grade level 9 Emperor Stage experts. For the other second-grade level 9 Emperor Stage experts, he was considered a relatively strong opponent. Moreover, they did not know Kong Shinmu's current strength, so they did not dare to challenge Kong Shinmu. Rather than challenging Jiang Shenwu, it would be better to challenge the other arenas. Although they seemed to be quite strong, it would be better to challenge the guys who knew each other well. Moreover, some of these guys' strength had already been consumed, so the possibility of winning the challenge was not low. Therefore, Kong Shinmu and Su Ye's arenas were empty for a while, until there was only half an hour left. Some of the second-tier 9th level Emperor Realm experts felt that they wouldn't be able to seize the opportunity to challenge the other arenas. After all, there were a lot of people eyeing the arenas that seemed easy to challenge. Not everyone had the opportunity to challenge them. Therefore, for the last chance, someone finally came to Kong Shinmu and Su Ye's arena. This was nothing to Kong Shinmu. As long as it was an opponent of the same level, they would not be able to deplete his strength one by one. Now, with the help of his devouring power, he could be said to be invincible among those of the same level. Either he crushed Kong Shinmu or he was defeated by Kong Shinmu's devouring power. There were only 2 possibilities. After all, Kong Shinmu's current comprehensive combat ability was extremely strong. He could deal with all kinds of possible situations. In the end, 2 second-grade experts appeared in front of Kong Shinmu. The first was an expert from the Star God clan. This expert from the Star God clan was proficient in the art of taming beasts. He actually commanded several star beasts to attack Jiang Shenwu. Unfortunately, the strength of these star beasts was not very high. Basically, they were a level weaker than the Black Dragon Demon inheritor. Therefore, Kong Shinmu did not need to use the power of the brilliant ruby stone. Instead, he used his physical body and the power of the Great Compassion Dragon Seal to block the attacks of the star beasts. He also devoured a lot of power of different attributes from the star beasts. Finally, when the time for an incense stick to burn was almost up, Kong Shinmu directly used his perception of the void energy to find the hidden expert of the Star Divinity clan. There was no doubt that the expert from the Star Divinity clan had hidden himself as soon as he entered the arena, allowing the star beast to fight against Kong Shinmu. However, his whereabouts had always been seen by Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu's perception was just too strong. After all, He had almost completely merged with the Nightmare Ink beast. No matter if it was his concealment ability or his ability to sense and hide, they were far superior to normal Xueqi. When that expert from the Star God clan was blasted out of the arena by Kong Xinmu, she was still somewhat shocked and in disbelief. She was incomparably puzzled. Kong Xinmu seemed to know where she was all along. However, if that was the case, why did he waste time entangling with the star beasts that she had summoned? Wouldn't it be better if he directly dealt with her? How would she know that Kong Xinmu wanted to devour more power of different attributes to strengthen his own resistance against different attributes? Therefore, this expert from the Star God clan also left the arena with a grievance. Following closely behind, the last person to arrive at the arena where Kong Xinmu was at was another expert from the Sea God clan. However, he was an expert from the Crab clan. His combat attributes were different from the experts from the Shrimp clan, Mighty Heaven, and the expert from the Turtle clan. This expert from the Crab clan mainly used more fierce techniques and had a fighting style similar to that of a fierce warrior. Kong Xinmu even felt a lot of pressure. The power of his martial arts attack might not be very great, but the frequency of his attack was extremely high and the speed of his attack was extremely fast. This guy maintained a high frequency of attacks. These martial arts consumed very little of his body's energy, but under the continuous attacks, it gave people a feeling of being unable to breathe. Even the power of the opponent's attack was condensed together to attack the same place. Even with Kong Xinmu's current defense, he felt as if it was being blasted apart by the opponent's continuous attacks. Strong, very strong. This expert from the Crab clan of the Sea God clan had an extremely strong combat ability. Moreover, in the midst of his continuous attacks, Kong Xinmu felt that the surrounding void was actually being continuously condensed by the opponent's attacks. The constantly condensing void made it so that Kong Xinmu could not even use the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash to evade it. After all, Kong Xinmu had not broken through the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash to the Extreme Saint Realm. If he had reached the Extreme Saint Realm, he would be able to directly use the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash regardless of the surrounding environment. Unfortunately, the current Kong Xinmu was still a little far from this level. After all, the time he had been in contact with the Void attribute power was still too short. The expert from the Crab clan of the Sea God clan continued to erupt with continuous attacks, even causing Kong Xinmu's black dragon body to be continuously blasted back. However, Kong Xinmu maintained the rhythm of retreating, not allowing himself to be blasted out of the range of the arena. Instead, he constantly circled around the arena. As the opponent continued to attack, the dragon scales on Kong Xinmu's black dragon body were even broken, dripping with blood, and countless wounds were blasted out. The martial arts technique used by the expert from the Crab clan of the Sea God clan was the combat martial arts technique of the Sea God clan. Due to the high frequency and speed of the attacks, an existence at the level of Kong Xinmu could not rely on pure defense to resist. Moreover, the more the opponent attacked, the more destructive the power was. After accumulating attacks for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the attacks of the expert from the Crab clan of the Sea God clan had reached their peak. His attack power was so great that Kong Xinmu could no longer rely on his own body's defense to block it. However, Kong Xinmu did not directly use the power of the brilliant ruby stone. While the opponent was madly attacking, Kong Xinmu quietly used the power of the Phantom Ghost Book and condensed the power of the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire. With a flash, he appeared behind the opponent. This part of the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's power directly began to devour the opponent's time from behind. This technique appeared again. When everyone had somewhat overlooked this technique of Kong Xinmu's, Kong Xinmu used it again. This time, it was when the opponent attacked wildly and neglected his defense. In reality, the opponent's physical defense was very strong. Even if Kong Xinmu's sneak attacked with the 9th stage Extreme Dragon Explosion, he would not be able to hurt the opponent. However, the power of the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire was an exception. As Kong Xinmu devoured the opponent's time, the opponent's figure became completely still in front of him. Then, Kong Xinmu did not have the mood to attack the opponent during this period of time, because just now was the best opportunity for him to sneak attack. If he had been any later, the time it takes for an incense stick to burn would be up, and the final moment of the arena battle would be coming soon. Therefore, he had to throw the opponent out of the arena as soon as possible. While the opponent was unable to move, Kong Shinmu unleashed the 9th stage Extreme Dragon Explosion 3 times in a row and blasted the opponent's Sea God Phantom out of the arena. Even though the opponent's time had been devoured and he could not move at all, Kong Shinmu still found it difficult to do this. This was because the opponent's physical defense was very strong. In a head-on fight, Kong Shinmu had no way of penetrating the opponent's defense unless he bombarded the opponent for several days like before. Chapter 48-87. Finally. The last 16 seats in the arena battle were finally determined. Kong Shinmu and Xueqi were both among them. It was not that no one wanted to fight them, but those who wanted to fight them failed to occupy the arena in the end. Of the hundreds of second-class level 9 Emperor Stage practitioners, only 9 were still standing in the arena. The other 5 were peak experts, including Huang Yun and Morong Lieni, as well as Kong Shinmu and Xueqi. What surprised Kong Shinmu was that he did not expect Lin Xiaotian, the boundless bandit demon god of the Demon God clan, to be among them. He was one of the final victors of the second class. Lin Xiaotian's combat power was not considered high, but his boundless bandit demon god's most powerful skill was not in a head-on battle. It was sinister sneak attacks. Kong Shinmu defeated Lin Xiaotian before because Lin Xiaotian did not use any sneak attacks at all, so he lost to Kong Shinmu. This was also intentional. After all, it was to allow Kong Shinmu to consolidate his strength. Most of his real combat power was concentrated in sneak attacks. Didn't you see that now that the final moment had arrived, there were many experts of various races around Lin Xiaotian's arena constantly cursing at him? Obviously, Lin Xiaotian's fighting style was quite despicable. But this was normal. Otherwise, how could he be qualified to be the inheritor of the boundless bandit demon god? The final 16 contestants were determined. On the side of the Dragon God clan, the result was not optimistic. In the end, including Kong Shinmu, there were only 2 people left in the arena. The other person was even seriously injured. That was Xueqi. This time, all the participants in the arena battle were the strongest experts of the 9th level of the Emperor stage. Even Shangguan Dai did not make it to the final 16. Moreover, Kong Shinmu noticed that she was seriously injured 2 hours ago and could no longer fight in the arena. This made Kong Shinmu feel quite emotional. This was a real competition. There were many experts from various races, unlike the 4th level Emperor stage battle where they were stuck at the 4th level. Of course, many of them could advance. Of course, if this kind of arena battle took place after a certain time, when Xiao Bai and the others reached the 9th level of the Emperor stage, maybe Xiao Bai and the others would be at the same level as Huang Yun and Morong Lieni. Unfortunately, the current accumulation of the Dragon God clan was too little. Xueqi possessed the power of the ice attribute. Although she was still on the stage, she had already suffered serious injuries. She was only relying on her willpower to support herself. Finally, at the last moment she stopped. If she had been half an hour late, she would probably have lost her place. As for Shangguan Dai and Tan Shozhua, because of this, they lost the chance to win in the end. There were also some old fellows from other secluded dragon martial artist clans who failed to leave their mark in this arena battle. This was the reason why Shangguan Dai and Tan Shozhua lost the chance to win. But Kong Shinmu was a pleasant surprise. If the 2 of them were not still standing in the arena, they would have been wiped out. On the side of the Dragon God clan, Xueqi was in danger and was on the verge of being kicked out of the arena. But Kong Shinmu was a pleasant surprise. If the 2 of them were not still standing in the arena, they would have been wiped out. According to the statistics, Kong Shinmu defeated the most opponents in the arena this time. Xueqi is second only to him. Maybe it's because they look easy to bully. Huang Yun, Morong Lieni, and the others look too strong, and no one dares to challenge them. Yes, this Kong Shinmu is amazing. He actually won first place in the 4th level of the Emperor stage for the longest time, and now he also won first place in the number of opponents defeated. How much benefit has this brought to the Dragon God clan? In the arena, many supreme experts were calculating and communicating in private. In their eyes, Kong Shinmu had become a super genius of the Dragon God clan, and it was not the time for him to break out. It was these 2 arena battles that made Kong Shinmu stand out. But there was still a long way to go before Kong Shinmu could really bring substantial benefits to the Dragon God clan, except for the 9 engraved heavenly and earthly holy item. Because Kong Shinmu's current strength was not very strong. He could reach the 9th level of the Emperor stage. At that time, he would be the strongest existence under the Supreme God Realm. Even at that time, Kong Shinmu could compete with the Supreme God Realm Masters. Just like Huang Yun and Murong Lieni, he might be stronger than them. Everything was unknown. But now the combat strength that Kong Shinmu showed already showed signs of this, and it even included Xueqi. Xueqi was an expert of the Demon God clan. In this arena battle, there seemed to be some collusion between the Demon God clan and the Dragon God clan. But this collusion was nothing. What really caught everyone's attention was that Xueqi's combat strength had skyrocketed after recovering from his serious injuries. This was very suspicious. Why? What made Xueqi's combat strength increase so much? No one thought that it was Kong Shinmu. After all, Kong Shinmu was a member of the Dragon God clan. At most, he only healed Xueqi. How could Xueqi's combat strength increase? This was a fundamental enhancement, and it was an enhancement in the details. Using the details to drive the whole was not something that ordinary people could do. Unfortunately, in everyone's guess, Xueqi's increase in strength had nothing to do with Kong Shinmu. Only the supreme experts of the Demon God clan knew the inside story. Emperor Shi's mystical dragon, Yu Yaji, and the others had also roughly guessed that it might have something to do with their return to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy office and the spar with Kong Shinmu. But they also did not know what exactly was going on. But they did not ask. After all, there was no need to do so. After all, Kong Shinmu was from the Dragon God clan. This could not be changed. Therefore, they and the Demon God clan only had a cooperative relationship. It was impossible for them to have any other deeper relationship. No one thought that Kong Shinmu had two kinds of inheritance from two sides at the same time. In fact, it was not two, but three, for now, the inheritance of the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire was something that others had not realized yet. Or rather, they had not thought of it at all. This was also a kind of inheritance. It was just that there was no race that had obtained this kind of inheritance. That was why others did not think of it. The 16 contestants for the arena battle have been determined. All parties will rest for 4 hours. After 4 hours, the elimination battle will begin. Following the announcement of the supreme experts of the various races, the experts in the arena left one after another. Xueqi's injuries were not serious, so Kong Shinmu only nodded slightly at her and ignored her. Instead, he flew to the arena where Chu Yueqiang was. Chapter 4888. Seeing that Chu Yueqiang was seriously injured, Kong Shinmu naturally had to go over to help. Right now, all the experts had already dispersed. Many people were injured, but Chu Yueqiang was the one with the heaviest injuries. It could not be said that her strength was the weakest, but it was very likely that her opponent was the strongest. In fact, as long as it was the second-tier 9th-level Emperor stage experts, there was little difference in strength between them. Who could stay in the arena in the end depended mainly on luck. After all, some people's abilities could restrain their opponents, while others' abilities could be restrained by others. The opponent you met almost determined whether or not you could stay in the arena. And the opponent Chu Yueqiang met was considered extremely strong among the second-tier 9th-level Emperor stage experts. Moreover, their abilities faintly restrained her, so it was already very amazing that she could stay in the arena and blast her opponent out. Right now, the experts of each clan were dispersing and resting. However, Chu Yueqiang was heavily injured, and could not move at all. If nothing unexpected happened, she would most likely be like the previous arena battle, unable to participate in the elimination round, and then directly placed in the 16th or 8th place. But now, Kong Shinmu was flying towards her. On the arena, other people couldn't go up, but Kong Shinmu could. He transformed into a black dragon and approached Chu Yueqiang. In the past, this seemingly cold teacher dragon emperor had helped Kong Shinmu a lot. During the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty, she had helped him repel several invading Dragon Emperor kingdom. The Dragon Emperor was Kong Shinmu's benefactor. Now it was Kong Shinmu's turn to help her. The devouring power began to devour the demon core and devil core in her body, and then condensed into the richest life essence, which was transferred to Chu Yueqiang's ice dragon body. Gradually, Chu Yueqiang's serious injuries began to recover. And many people watching this scene felt a little scared. What kind of terrifying healing ability was this? If this appeared on the battlefield, in the process of exploring ruins, who could fight against Kong Shinmu? Perhaps in the future, when exploring intermediate ruins, whoever could join hands with Kong Shinmu would be able to obtain the most benefits. Thinking back to the incident at the elementary ruins, anyone who went against Kong Shinmu, including the supposedly invincible the evil prince, was killed and his heaven and earth saint item was taken away. It could be said that many people now attached great importance to Kong Shinmu. The main reason was the demon gods. The demon gods had been fighting against Kong Shinmu for a long time. Although they belonged to different departments, Kong Shinmu was already a great enemy of the demon gods. It was a pity that there was no demon god among the 5 pinnacle experts. Otherwise, the demon gods would definitely have sent their pinnacle expert to deal with Kong Shinmu. They might even have tried to kill Kong Shinmu in the arena. The Black Dragon Demon Inheritor had come for this, but unfortunately, he couldn't do anything to Kong Shinmu. Instead, he was blasted out of the arena by Kong Shinmu and lost his chance. This time, out of the hundreds of second-grade 9th-level Emperor experts, only 9 stood in the arena. It could be said that the remaining 90% of the experts had failed due to various reasons. Either they didn't get the chance to challenge the arena, or they used up all 3 chances and couldn't occupy an arena. For example, the Black Dragon Demon Inheritor. These people had made some mistakes in their judgment or strength, and they were all vexed. As for Shangguan Dai'er and Tan Shouzhua, they were blasted out of the arena and didn't get the chance to fight again. Each of them still had the chance to challenge. Unfortunately, the competition before the final moment was too fierce, and they didn't get the chance to challenge again. At this moment, in the arena, Kong Shinmu was healing Chu Yueqiang. Originally, Chu Yueqiang couldn't even open her eyes. But soon, the life force in her body was recovering, and she was full of energy again. She deactivated her divine dragon form and stood up in front of Kong Shinmu's pitch-black divine dragon body. Her heart was filled with emotions. Who would have thought that the young dragon warrior student she had been teaching was such a genius? He was almost catching up to her in such a short time. Kong Shinmu. Thank you. Chu Yueqiang's mouth twitched. You're welcome. Teacher, although you have just recovered from your serious injuries, your strength has not recovered. I will take you back to rest first. Kong Shinmu nodded at her, then let her sit on the back of his divine dragon body. Then he flew her back to the Dragon God spectator stand. Chu Yueqiang was the Dragon Emperor's teacher at Donghuang Yongwu College, and also the subordinate of the Dragon God of Calamity. When she was seriously injured, the Dragon God of Calamity was very upset. But now, seeing that Kong Shinmu had helped her recover, and the relationship between them seemed to be quite close, he even let a girl sit on the dragon's back. This made the Dragon God of Calamity feel quite happy. Although Kong Shinmu belonged to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts College, or rather, the Holy Lands of 5 Extremes Dark Ice, if Chu Yueqiang could maintain a relationship with him, or even have that kind of relationship, wouldn't it be excellent? This was equivalent to a political marriage. But soon, the Dragon God of Calamity thought of something. Chu Yueqiang was the Dragon Emperor's teacher, and it seemed that she was the teacher of Kong Shinmu before he left Donghuang Yongwu College. With this relationship, there would probably be some gap between them, wouldn't there? It might not be appropriate to say that there was a gap, but there would definitely be a gap between them. Therefore, the Dragon God of Calamity began to think of a way. Soon, 4 hours had passed. Kong Shinmu was ready for the final battle, and Chu Yueqiang had also taken the powerful recovery elixir given by the Dragon God of Calamity within these 4 hours, and her strength had completely recovered. She could enter the arena in her best condition. Next, it was time to draw lots. In the draw lots, the opponent they got in the first round would almost determine whether they could become one of the top 10. Only by becoming one of the top 10 would they gain more. Otherwise, it would be the same as not participating in the arena battle. After all, if they didn't enter the top 10, even if they became one of the top 16, they would only receive a small consolation prize. For Kong Shinmu, this consolation prize was unnecessary. His goal was to enter the top 4. This was a situation where his luck was relatively good. It all depended on when he would encounter opponents at the level of Huang Yun and Murong Lieni. And Kong Shinmu's luck had always been relatively good. The results of the draw were out very quickly. Chu Yueqiang was facing off against another expert from the Sea God tribe second class, while Jiang Shenwu was facing off against a second-class expert from the Demon God tribe. Neither of them faced off against Huang Yun and Murong Lieni's group. Su Yi, on the other hand, directly faced a peak expert from the Talisman Water Tribe. This caused Xueqi, who was watching from the spectator stand, to have a serious expression. Chapter 48-89. First up was Xueqi's turn. This time, Xueqi fought against the second-tier powerhouse of the Oceanic God Tribe. Both sides were about the same in terms of strength, and there wasn't any obvious restraint. After a fierce battle, Xueqi won by a small margin. Both sides were injured, but Xueqi's injuries were relatively light. Hence, after the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Xueqi won. However, even though her injuries were light, she lost the ability to fight again. Hence, Kong Xinmu had no choice but to appear again. He went to the arena to treat Xueqi's injuries and brought her back again. This made Xueqi feel rather embarrassed. This was the second time. She sat on the back of Kong Xinmu's black dragon body and sighed with emotion again. Next up was Xueqi's battle against the Talisman Water Tribe's pinnacle powerhouse. This was a battle that Kong Xinmu attached great importance to. To be honest, his current combat strength was about the same as Xueqi's. Of course, if he didn't use any special techniques, it should be about the same. Hence, the outcome of Xueqi's battle against the Talisman Water Tribe's pinnacle powerhouse would very likely determine the outcome of the battle between Kong Xinmu and the pinnacle powerhouse. Very quickly, Kong Xinmu discovered that Xueqi actually had the ability to fight against the pinnacle powerhouse. Most importantly, Xueqi's inherited blood essence was 2 levels lower than theirs. Apart from this, there wasn't much difference between Xueqi and the pinnacle powerhouse in other aspects. Moreover, Xueqi had only just consolidated her 7th-level martial emperor power. Compared to an opponent who had been stuck at the 9th-level martial emperor for a long time, she was naturally at a significant disadvantage. Even so, after receiving guidance from Kong Xinmu, Xueqi's combat strength had skyrocketed. This allowed her to fight against the pinnacle powerhouse of the Talisman Water Tribe. She wasn't crushed. This time, the pinnacle powerhouse of the Talisman Water Tribe wouldn't go easy on Xueqi. He immediately used the strongest Talisman Water Tribe's combat soldiers. The use of these combat soldiers allowed him to unleash his strongest power. The entire arena was filled with water attribute power that surged and roared wildly. This caused Xueqi to be like a small boat in a tsunami that could capsize at any time. However, Xueqi's strength wasn't weak. Under such a terrifying attack, he actually persisted for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Although Xueqi didn't have a chance to counterattack, she wasn't defeated either. However, the rules of the arena battle were as such. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, she hadn't even touched the Talisman Water Tribe's peak expert. Instead, she had suffered some light injuries. This meant that she could only be considered to have been defeated. She had lost the first victory in the elimination battle. Now, Xueqi could only consider whether she could get 9th or 10th place in the end. If Xueqi could get the 9th or 10th place, it would be easier for her to accept the result. After all, her original goal was to become one of the final 16. She could only get the 9th or 10th place after receiving guidance from Kong Xinmu. Her estimation of her strength was relatively accurate. Unfortunately, her luck wasn't too good. Otherwise, she might have advanced to the top 8. Next, it was Kong Xinmu's turn to fight. His opponent was a second-class powerhouse of the Demon God Tribe. To Kong Xinmu, this powerhouse wasn't considered a powerhouse at all. This was because this fellow was already seriously injured. He had been seriously injured during the battle for the arena battle, and had yet to fully recover. Apart from Kong Xinmu's heaven-defying healing ability, who else could recover from such a heavy injury in such a short time? It was impossible. Therefore, Kong Xinmu's opponent was only a 9th stage second-class Emperor stage cultivator, who had yet to recover from his serious injuries. This demon god powerhouse had no way of resisting Kong Xinmu. He couldn't even display half of his strength as he was directly blocked by Kong Xinmu's defense. He couldn't even break through Kong Xinmu's defense. Not to mention seriously injuring Kong Xinmu. Even if Kong Xinmu didn't move and let the opponent attack, the opponent wouldn't be able to break through Kong Xinmu's physical defense. He wouldn't be able to injure Kong Xinmu in the slightest. Therefore, Kong Xinmu quickly blasted this fellow out of the arena. About 4 hours later, the first round of 8 battles was completely over. Kong Xinmu and Xueqi were both in the top 8. However, It was time to draw lots again. This time, the lot drawing was more important. Among the remaining 8 people, apart from Kong Xinmu and Chu Yueqiang, there was only one second-class cultivator left. That cultivator was from the virtual human tribe. Apart from that, they were all peak experts at the level of Huang Yun and Morong Lieni. It would be extremely difficult to win the next round and advance to the top 4. Kong Xinmu wasn't very confident. After all, he didn't know how long the brilliant ruby stone would remain dormant in order to resist such an opponent's attack. He also didn't know if his devouring power could quickly restore the brilliant ruby stone's ability. Everything was unknown. He would only know after fighting. It was true that Kong Xinmu had some other hidden tricks up his sleeves. However, he hadn't used them yet. He also didn't intend to use them all in the arena battles. He absolutely could not allow his strength to be completely seen through by others. Of course, if it was for the sake of ranking, Kong Xinmu was still certain that he would use his trump cards. He was afraid that those trump cards would be useless even if he used them. No matter what, Kong Xinmu was more nervous now. The next opponent would decide everything. Soon, the results of the lot drawing were out. Kong Xinmu versus Morong Lieni. Chu Yueqiang versus the second-class virtual human tribe cultivator. Huang Yun was fighting against the Fu Shui peak expert who defeated Su Yi. The other 2 peak experts were also fighting against each other. This was a lot drawing. Therefore, although it wasn't very fair to the peak experts, they could only accept it. Chu Yueqiang, do your best. You might be able to enter the top 4 this time. Kong Xinmu should be dead by now. It's impossible for him to defeat Morong Lieni. However, you, Chu Yueqiang, might be able to enter the top 4. This was because Chu Yueqiang's opponent was the weakest. Of course, to Chu Yueqiang's opponent, Chu Yueqiang was also the best opponent among the 7 people. Both Chu Yueqiang and the virtual human tribe expert were rubbing their palms together. They wanted to win the next battle. As expected, the first battle was between Chu Yueqiang and the virtual human tribe expert. After entering the arena, Chu Yueqiang's advantage was simply too great. This was because Kong Xinmu had completely healed Chu Yueqiang's injuries and restored her strength. On the other hand, the virtual human tribe expert was injured. The virtual human tribe expert hadn't been in good shape when he was guarding the arena. In the previous round of 16, he had used up more than half of his strength. Although his strength had been restored, his injuries hadn't healed yet. Chapter 48-90. No one would have thought that Chu Yueqiang would be severely injured and even lose the ability to fight in the arena. Yet, she was able to run out of the arena alive and well. This was all because of Kong Xinmu. When Chu Yueqiang was at her peak condition, she directly crushed the virtual human tribe powerhouse. If both sides were at their peak condition, the virtual human tribe powerhouse might not necessarily lose. After all, he had many tricks up his sleeves. However, the virtual human tribe powerhouse was struggling at death's door. After all, he had not fully recovered from his injuries. To Chu Yueqiang, even if she just kept defending, even if there were no results within the time it took for a joss stick to burn, Chu Yueqiang could still win. This was because the opponent was already injured. Chu Yueqiang did not need to fight recklessly. Chu Yueqiang did not want to clash head-on with the other party. The other party was simply too nimble. Although he was injured, the other party's comprehension of the void was not something that Chu Yueqiang could keep up with. Therefore, Chu Yueqiang was eventually attacked by the opponent and injured. After all, the opponent was not a super powerful existence like Kong Xinmu. The current Chu Yueqiang's battle strength could be said to be inferior to Kong Xinmu. Therefore, it was completely normal for her to be injured in this kind of battle. However, she quickly reacted and took advantage of the moment when the opponent attacked to counterattack. Although the opponent injured Chu Yueqiang's ice attack was even stronger. She directly blasted the opponent from half-injured to heavily injured. Terrifying power continuously exploded in the arena. Every time the opponent attacked, Chu Yueqiang was able to find an opening to counterattack. This was the ability to defend and counterattack. Although Chu Yueqiang was not as agile as the opponent, she was able to keep her opponent at a disadvantage. In the end, Chu Yueqiang was seriously injured again. As for the virtual human tribe powerhouse, he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. After the time it took for a joss stick to burn, Xueqi was declared the winner. There was no doubt that Xueqi had entered the top 4. This was something that Xueqi had never imagined. For a moment, a faint blush appeared on her originally cold face. Even though she was seriously injured, she still seemed to be in a good mood. Of course, anyone would be in a good mood at a time like this. However, she was seriously injured again. Thus, Kong Xinmu had to step in and heal her on the stage. Then, he had her sit on his black dragon body and fly back. This was the 3rd time. As Dragon Emperor's mentor, Xueqi couldn't help but blush. This was truly too shameful. To think that Kong Xinmu had saved her from serious injuries 3 times. Without a doubt, it was all thanks to Kong Xinmu that she was able to enter the semi-finals. But Kong Xinmu himself, because of Murong Lieni, might not be able to break into the top 4. No matter what, all she had to do now was to watch the battle. If there were no accidents, it would be impossible for Xueqi to be in the top 2. Top 4 was already the best result. Even in the top 4, she was the weakest. It was very likely that she would be in 4th place, not 3rd. After all, her next opponents were people like Huang Yun and Murong Lieni. Soon, Kong Xinmu appeared on the stage. Once again, he faced the ancient Phoenix clan's peak level 9 Emperor Realm powerhouse, Murong Lieni. We meet again. Murong Lieni squinted her eyes, her beautiful face filled with curiosity. Kong Xinmu, I saw your previous battle and realized that you didn't use your full strength. I'm afraid that even I am not your opponent. This was called showing weakness to the enemy, making them lower their guard, or making them arrogant. Then they would make mistakes due to carelessness. But how could Kong Xinmu be such a person? He also smiled and said, Not at all, not at all. Sister Murong, your strength far surpasses mine. I am not your opponent. I came on stage to see how big the gap between me and you is. Otherwise, I would have just admitted defeat. You are such a slippery little girl. Murong Lieni obviously wouldn't be fooled by this sister. Although she admired Kong Xinmu very much, and even wanted to cooperate with him, she had to win this battle. Her goal was to be the champion. Of course, she also looked down on Kong Xinmu. So she planned to use all her strength to attack Kong Xinmu, and throw Kong Xinmu out of the stage as fast as possible. Last time when she fought against Kong Xinmu, she didn't use her ancient Phoenix clan's top-grade weapons. But this time, she decided to use them directly. Immediately, her 2 top-grade heaven-ranked combat weapons appeared by her side. They were 2 fan-like combat weapons, burning with endless flames. As she transformed into the form of a fiery phoenix, the temperature of the entire area suddenly rose, and even the void began to distort due to the high temperature. Her strength was too strong. Then, a beam of fire suddenly burst out and shot towards Kong Xinmu at an unimaginable speed. Moreover, in the situation where the sky was filled with flames, Kong Xinmu felt that the void was burned and sealed, and he couldn't use the sunset blade flash. This made Kong Xinmu a little depressed. It seemed that he needed to break through the sunset blade flash to the extreme saint realm as soon as possible. All of this depended on Shangguan Dyer. When the time came, he would definitely learn from her. At this time, Kong Xinmu was facing his opponent's concentrated attack, and he couldn't dodge it. There was only one way left. Brilliant Ruby. The golden light curtain of the brilliant ruby appeared in front of Kong Xinmu once again. At the same time, Kong Xinmu's swallowing power spread out, constantly swallowing the power of the surrounding flames. The golden light curtain of the brilliant ruby unfolded and blocked the bombardment of Murong Lieni's fire beam, completely blocking it. The limit of the brilliant ruby was that it could withstand the full attack of a supreme god peak expert, so it was far from its limit. However, Murong Lieni's strongest attack bombarded the golden light curtain of the brilliant ruby, causing Kong Xinmu's brilliant ruby to fall into a state of silence for 2 months. If he wanted to restore it, he would probably have to swallow 3 attacks from his opponent. This was what Kong Xinmu was worried about. The brilliant ruby could not be used indefinitely. After all, the strength of the opponent's attack was much stronger than that of the Black Dragon Demon's inheritor. Therefore, Kong Xinmu had no choice but to consider other means. Fortunately, his Phantom Ghost Book had also undergone other aspects of brilliance. At this moment, he finally activated another brilliance ability of the Phantom Ghost Book. The brilliance ability of the Brilliant Ruby of Nothingness. The Brilliant Ruby of Nothingness could rely on its perception of the power of the void, and in combination with the void battle runes on the dragon weapon, to determine the increase in power. Chapter 4891. There was no doubt that the Rose Stone of Nothingness was not widely used. Because it could only dazzle attack-type battle soldiers, and it needed battle soldiers with void battle runes. Moreover, the number of void battle runes could not be too small, or else it would not be able to display its full power. This was a powerful Rose Stone that could absorb energy from the void. It was a perfect match for the Heaven-grade Divine Spiritual Dragon artifact, the Illusory Ghost Tome. The Illusory Ghost Tome had 240 void battle runes. Combined with the user's comprehension of void energy, it could absorb a large amount of energy from the void to strengthen the user's offensive power. Kong Shin-Mu directly activated the ability of the Rose Stone of Nothingness, and then used the 9th stage Ultimate Roaring Dragon Explosion. A terrifying power directly burst out from Murong Lieni's side. This time, the 9th stage Ultimate Roaring Dragon Explosion was almost 5 times stronger than Kong Shin-Mu's attack at his peak. This was the effect of the Rose Stone of Nothingness. Of course, the key was that there were many void battle runes in the Phantom Ghost Book, and Kong Shin-Mu's perception of void power had almost reached the peak of the Emperor rank. Therefore, the Rose Stone of Nothingness could directly absorb more than 4 times the power from the void, and increase the lethality of the initial attack by more than 5 times. Moreover, as Kong Shin-Mu's understanding of void power increased, this increase in power would continue to increase. Moreover, the lethality and destructive power of Kong Shin-Mu's 9th stage Ultimate Roaring Dragon Explosion had almost reached the level of the flaming light beam that Murong Lieni had just displayed. The terrifying power directly exploded beside Murong Lieni. However, immediately after, the flames on Murong Lieni's body condensed into an oval egg-shaped barrier, completely enveloping her flaming phoenix body. The defensive ability of this flame barrier had almost reached the peak of the Emperor rank, and it completely blocked Kong Shin-Mu's 9th stage Ultimate Roaring Dragon Explosion. Moreover, these flames seemed to be able to burn the void, burning a layer of void outside the flaming phoenix body. When Kong Shin-Mu's power bombarded over, it all blasted into the void, and it was almost impossible for it to pose a threat to Murong Lieni. So powerful! Murong Lieni was indeed a peak level 9 martial emperor. Not only was her attack power extremely strong, but her defense was also watertight. She didn't give anyone the slightest chance. Kong Shin-Mu, your attack is so strong. It's almost as strong as my strongest attack. As expected, you've been hiding something. You still want to trick your sister. Hee hee. Murong Lieni's voice sounded from the arena. However, Kong Shin-Mu seized the opportunity to unleash his devouring power and devour the opponent's flame defense barrier. After the power of the opponent's flame defense barrier was devoured by Kong Shin-Mu, he transferred it to the brilliant gem. Then, Kong Shin-Mu began to attack without limit. 9th stage Extreme Dao Roaring Dragon Burst, Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique Strong Offensive Stance, Illusory Ghost Book, Void Rose Stone. All kinds of methods were concentrated together, constantly exploding around Murong Lieni, making it impossible for her to find time to fight back against Kong Shin-Mu. And during this time, Kong Shin-Mu constantly devoured the power of the opponent's flame barrier. It had to be said that the other party's flame barrier was extremely powerful. The energy within it was extremely dense and could not be devoured in a short period of time. However, Kong Shin-Mu had transferred all of it to the brilliant gemstone. He had to ensure that he could deal with the next attack. Moreover, while Kong Shin-Mu was constantly using the 9th stage Extreme Dao Roaring Dragon Explosion to attack, his opponent was also constantly consuming energy to defend. It had to be said that Kong Shin-Mu's current attack strength was almost at the peak of the Emperor stage. Moreover, he didn't need to consume any energy to attack continuously. This kind of method had already exceeded the understanding of everyone present. After all, such a powerful attack would definitely consume its energy very quickly, right? However, Kong Shin-Mu seemed to have an inexhaustible amount of energy. He attacked crazily and didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Finally, after launching 10 attacks of the 9th stage Extreme Dao Roaring Dragon Explosion, Kong Shin-Mu felt that his opponent's defense seemed to have loosened a little. Here's my chance. Flame attack. Kong Shin-Mu had just devoured too much flame energy. At this time, he directly felt that his opponent's defense was loosening. If he didn't attack now, when would he? Under his continuous attacks, his opponent's flame barrier seemed to have loosened a little. At the same time, endless flame energy erupted from Kang Xinmu's body. It was like a sea of fire was spreading towards his opponent's flaming phoenix body and crashing down. It was also at this time that Kang Xinmu suddenly felt that something was amiss. In the void in front of him, a void flame suddenly bloomed and directly bombarded the area where he was. This void flame seemed to be very strong, but it also had a strange feeling. It wasn't the kind of absolute power and destructive power, but seemed to have some strange effect. However, Kang Xinmu didn't care. He directly displayed the power of the brilliant rose stone and directly blocked this void flame. No matter what kind of attack it was or what special effect it had, he just had to block it. The brilliant rose stone's golden light curtain appeared and blocked the void flame. At the same time, Kang Xinmu found that the endless flame energy that he had burst out had completely wrapped Murong Liani's flaming phoenix body. The flame energy that he had burst out was equivalent to the power of his opponent's several attacks. It was absolutely not something that his opponent could easily resist. If his strongest power was increased by 3 or 5 times, how could she possibly resist it? Murong Liani wasn't a pure defensive type of ancient Phoenix clan cultivator. Therefore, her entire body was burned by the flame energy. Murong Liani's own resistance to the power of flames was extremely strong. However, at this moment, she couldn't withstand the bombardment of such a terrifying flame energy. Not to mention, Kang Xinmu continued to bombard her with 3 consecutive waves of 9th stage Ultimate Flood Dragon Explosion. This 9th stage Ultimate Flood Dragon Explosion also used the power of the Phantom Ghost Book and the power of the Brilliant Rose Stone. It directly appeared from the void in front of Murong Liani. Murong Liani simply didn't have time to block it. Her flaming phoenix body was instantly burned by the endless flames and blasted out of the arena. At the same time, it was the same for Kang Xinmu. Although Kang Xinmu used the Brilliant Rose Stone to resist Murong Liani's void flame, the special effect of the void flame was to push the void out of the arena. Kang Xinmu's Brilliant Rose Stone resisted the void flame attack, but the space where his black dragon body was pushed back by the void flame. Almost at the same time, Kang Xinmu and Murong Liani were blasted out of the arena. Chapter 4892. She shouldn't have died, right? Kang Xinmu couldn't help but think. Soon, Murong Liani's aura completely disappeared from the arena. This made Kang Xinmu's heart skip a beat. He couldn't have really swallowed too much power and directly killed Murong Liani, could he? If that was the case, then it would be a sin. But soon, he discovered a strange phenomenon. He discovered that in the endless flames, an oval-shaped flame egg appeared in the arena. Was that a phoenix egg? Murong Liani actually underwent nirvana at this time? The surrounding people all cried out in surprise, especially the practitioners of the ancient Phoenix clan. All of them had looks of envy and surprise. They didn't expect that Murong Liani would actually meet such an opponent on such an arena, who could be evenly matched with her, but not by too much, and beat her into the process of nirvana. Nirvana? What is that? Kang Xinmu was simply dumbfounded. He and Murong Liani had been blasted out of the arena at almost the same time. So who had advanced to the top 4? Let's not talk about this for now. Anyway, the outcome of the arena battle was already out. Kang Xinmu directly returned to the spectator stands and looked at the flame egg from afar. Then he asked Yu Yaji and Emperor Shi Divine Dragon what nirvana was. After the explanation, Kang Xinmu finally understood. At the same time, he felt a little emotional. This Murong Liani was really lucky. Nirvana was a saying that only the ancient Phoenix clan had. The ancient Phoenix clan had always inherited the power of the ancient Phoenix god's flame. This power could go through 9 nirvanas. After each nirvana, the inheritor's power would become stronger. This was a method unique to the ancient Phoenix clan to become stronger. And nirvana itself was an opportunity that could be desired but not sought. The reason why one would become stronger after nirvana was because nirvana was in fact a process of swallowing external power to fuse into one's own power. This power must be compatible with one's own power. But the strength of every ancient Phoenix clan inheritor was uncertain. It could be said that the inheritors of the ancient Phoenix clan were always searching for a strength that was compatible with their own. Moreover, this strength had to be just right. It couldn't be too strong nor could it be too weak. He needed to be able to heavily injure her, but not directly kill her. In this situation, the compatible power would allow her to enter the state of nirvana. During nirvana, the cultivators of the ancient Phoenix clan were like fire eggs, and Murong Lieni was like that now. The nirvana process wasn't long, but Kong Shinmu discovered that Murong Lieni was currently absorbing the power that he had released. Part of that power was devouring power, and the other part was her own power that had been transformed by the devouring power. In that case, what kind of power was she compatible with? As Kong Shinmu thought to himself, the fiend celestial ancestor expressed, "It must be the power of devouring." The devouring power was the power of the primal chaos sky-devouring dragon. This kind of power could devour everything in the world. At the same time, it was also compatible with everything in the world. This girl is really lucky. Hearing this, Kong Shinmu was speechless, but he quickly thought of something. Doesn't that mean that Murong Lieni will be able to use the power of devouring in the future? Strictly speaking, not really. The ancient Phoenix god. I've dealt with that old woman before. She has experienced 9 nirvanas, and her own power has been fused with 9 powerful powers. But that is only a part of the nature of these 9 powers. She cannot use all 9 powers. Simply put, it is a weakened version of the power of devouring. Murong Lieni will be able to use it in the future, but it will definitely not be as strong as yours. Kong Shinmu had never imagined that a single arena battle would cause Murong Lieni to undergo such a nirvana transformation. After Emperor Shi's divine dragon and Yuyaji's explanation, Kong Shinmu knew that it was extremely difficult for the cultivators of the ancient Phoenix clan to undergo nirvana. There were even many supreme powerhouses of the ancient Phoenix clan that hadn't even undergone nirvana once. But now, Murong Lieni had actually undergone nirvana. This was Murong Lieni's first nirvana. And in the entire ancient Phoenix clan, there was almost no one below the transcendent level who could undergo nirvana. This was because many of the powers that were compatible with the inheritance of the ancient Phoenix clan had already dissipated from this world. There were many transcendent-level powerhouses of the ancient Phoenix clan who, by chance, encountered this power in the supreme ruins and then underwent nirvana by chance. Doesn't that mean that I can let all the cultivators of the ancient Phoenix clan undergo nirvana once? Kong Shinmu suddenly thought of this, and his expression became a little strange. In theory, yes. The demon god ancestor chuckled. How about it? Do you want to consider becoming the savior of the ancient Phoenix clan? Most of the inheritors of the ancient Phoenix clan are peerless beauties. If you can penetrate deep into the ancient Phoenix clan, you brat, you will be blessed. Look, this was the typical mentality of the demon god. In any case, Kong Shinmu definitely did not have such a plan now. He did not want to expose anything about the power of devouring. If this power was discovered to be compatible with the power of everyone in the ancient Phoenix clan, then Kong Shinmu felt that it would be the beginning of endless trouble. Too troublesome. But now, Murong Lieni began her nirvana. Therefore, the entire arena battle was directly suspended. The next 2 matches of the top 4 were temporarily postponed. During this period, everyone was paying attention to Murong Lieni's nirvana. Many people were discussing that after Murong Lieni's nirvana was successful, her battle strength would crush everyone else, and she would become a true peak emperor-level powerhouse. This was an opportunity that Kong Shinmu had given her. At this time, someone ran over to ask Emperor Shi the mystical dragon how the winner of this match between Kong Shinmu and Murong Lieni should be calculated. Emperor Shi the mystical dragon did not know about this. So she smiled and said, "After that child's nirvana is successful, let her and Kong Shinmu discuss and decide. If it doesn't work out, then we will fight again?" Emperor Shi the mystical dragon said this easily. If they fought again, it was almost impossible for Kong Shinmu to be Murong Lieni's opponent. This was because after Murong Lieni's nirvana was completed, she already possessed a part of the power of devouring. He still did not know how she would display her power of devouring, but no matter what, Kong Shinmu felt that it was only a draw. When Murong Lieni's nirvana was completed, he would definitely not be her opponent. No matter what, it was better to wait for Murong Lieni to wake up first. 2 hours later, Murong Lieni finally completed her nirvana. She familiarized herself with her current strength and cast a grateful look at Kong Shinmu. When someone came over to ask her how to calculate the winner of the match, she immediately made a decision. Kong Shinmu allowed me to obtain the great lucky chance of nirvana. Logically speaking, I should let him win this match. But now that I have undergone nirvana, I have become stronger. I think I can take the championship. So I want to take the championship. But the prize for the championship can be exchanged with that of Kong Shin-mu. How about this? Kong Shin-mu, do you agree? This proposal made Kong Shin-mu ponder. Chapter 4893. Kong Shin-mu agreed to Murong Liani's suggestion. Without a doubt, this was a great deal. The prize for the first place was 100,000 gold dragon coins, which was enough to buy 2 brilliant gemstones. It was very important to Kong Shin-mu. After all, it was impossible for him to get a 9-layer engraved Heaven and Earth Saint grade again. It was extremely difficult for him to get a large amount of cultivation resources. Therefore, it was a good thing to get cultivation resources from these places and exchange them for gold dragon coins. If Kong Shin-mu fought alone, he might not be able to become the champion. It would be difficult for him to even get into the top 2. After all, his opponents were existences at Murong Liani's level. Now that he had almost used up all his trump cards, it would not be easy for him to deal with his opponents now that they were on guard. Therefore, rather than fighting for his life, it was better to let Murong Liani help him. However, if he gave her the title of the first place, Kong Shin-mu also felt that if he really got the first place, it would be very dangerous for him in the future. After all, his talent was too terrifying. But if Murong Liani became the champion, everything would be fine. Moreover, the prize for the champion would belong to Kong Shin-mu. This was a win-win situation for both Kong Shin-mu and Murong Liani. Of course, in exchange, no matter what rank Kong Shin-mu got, his part of the prize would still be given to Murong Liani. Then, the arena battles continued. In the end, Kong Shin-mu fought for a good rank for Murong Liani. The 5th place would be rewarded with cultivation resources equivalent to 30,000 gold dragon coins. These were exchanged with Murong Liani's 100,000 gold dragon coins. There was nothing more to say after that. Xueqi got the 4th place, and her reward was also 30,000 gold dragon coins worth of cultivation resources. To Xueqi, these cultivation resources were extremely precious. They were enough for her to break through to the level of a super divine dragon. However, she did not intend to monopolize these resources. Instead, she intended to share half of them with Kong Shin-mu. After all, without Kong Shin-mu's help, she could not even get half of these resources. However, Kong Shin-mu did not accept it. Instead, he gave Xueqi a suggestion. Now that she had enough cultivation resources, should she help him lead the Devouring Dragon group? Xueqi immediately agreed to this suggestion. 30,000 gold dragon coins were enough for her to break through to the super mystical dragon rank. All that was left was time. During this process, it wouldn't be a problem for her to help Kong Shin-mu take care of the Devouring Dragon group. So, the matter was decided. Kong Shin-mu even gave Xueqi all the cultivation resources that Murong Liani had given him, which were worth 100,000 gold dragon coins. He asked Xueqi to purchase some cultivation resources to nurture the Devouring Dragon group. Kong Shin-mu believed that Xueqi would not embezzle these cultivation resources. The 2 arena battles held by the Martial Dragon continent were finally over. In the end, the Demon God tribe, the Ancient Phoenix tribe, and the Dragon God tribe all benefited greatly. As for the other tribes, the results were not very good. Among them, the Demon God tribe received guidance from Kong Shin-mu, which increased the combat strength of the Demon God tribe's royal family. This was extremely significant to the Demon God tribe's royal family. As for the Ancient Phoenix tribe, they won the 2nd arena battle. Although the reward was given to Kong Shin-mu, the champion was still the champion. After Murong Liani underwent nirvana, everyone was surprised to find that her combat strength had become extremely terrifying. Wasn't nirvana just a part of the Ancient Phoenix tribe's strength increase? Why did it seem like it had multiplied several times? Even if the Imperial Cloud tribe met Murong Liani in the finals, they were completely crushed by her. They were not her match at all. After the arena battles ended, Murong Liani came to visit Kong Shin-mu in a restaurant in the Martial Dragon Fortress. At the same time, she treated Kong Shin-mu to a meal to thank him. At the same time, Murong Liani was very curious about Kong Shin-mu's power. I don't know how to use your power for now, and the effect is not as strong as when you use it yourself. However, this power is very strong. I can feel it, and it has many unique uses. Of course, I will not tell anyone this secret. Oh right, the demon god tribe told us that there will be a mid-level relic opening in 6 months. We invited the dragon god tribe to participate. What do you think? This was a temporary alliance. At present, the demon god tribe and the ancient phoenix tribe were willing to form an alliance with the dragon god tribe. At present, no one had discovered the mid-level relic. Therefore, the demon god tribe could have monopolized it, but this time, they were willing to explore it with the ancient phoenix tribe and the dragon god tribe. The main reason was that the combat power of Kong Shinmu and Murong Lieni really made them jealous. With the two of them, it was very likely that they would be able to obtain a lot of benefits in the mid-level relic. Moreover, they could also gain the favor of the ancient phoenix tribe and the dragon god tribe. Why not? What they needed to pay for this was that the cultivators of the ancient phoenix tribe and the dragon god tribe would receive a share of the rewards. This did not affect them much. Kong Shinmu directly agreed to this matter and planned to inform Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon. To be able to explore a mid-level relic without needing to report to the dragon god tribe was an opportunity for all the dragon martial artists. Therefore, Kong Shinmu did not need to ask Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon. After the arena battles ended, Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon left first. She still had very important things to do. The 9-layered engraved sacred treasure of heaven and earth was with her. She was an extremely strong existence on the front lines of the war, so she could not delay and had to go back. Before she left behind a jade slip. This jade slip was about unlocking the engravings of the sacred treasure of heaven and earth. It was mainly about Kong Shinmu's sacred treasure of heaven and earth, the Scarlet Rose Fan. This was a sacred treasure of heaven and earth with 3 layers of engravings. However, the evil prince had not been able to unlock it even once before. The main reason was that it required too many cultivation resources. For Kong Shinmu, wasn't it the same? Looking at the cultivation resources needed to unlock the engravings in the jade slip, Kong Shinmu was a little shocked just by glancing at it. The current him really could not unlock the seal of the Scarlet Rose Fan. With the wealth he had now, he was still far from unlocking the first layer of the seal of the Scarlet Rose Fan. He only had 1/3 of it. Therefore, for the time being, there was no need to think about it. However, the power of this Scarlet Rose Fan was already very strong. Kong Shinmu could not use it himself. After all, it was only equivalent to the peak of the 9th level of the Emperor realm. However, he could temporarily give it to others. Chapter 4894. After the arena battle was over, the Dragon Martial Continent became quiet again. The 9 major races all left the Dragon Martial Continent. The Dragon Martial Continent once again became a small world belonging to the Dragon Gods. From then on, any cultivators from other races who entered the Dragon Martial Continent would be regarded as hostile and provocative behavior. The Dragon Gods had the right to kill them directly. At this time, Kong Shinmu originally planned to return to the 5 Extremes mysterious Ice Holy Land to keep his appointment with Luo En. But when he returned, he found that not only Luo En, but also that Feng Baixue had disappeared. These guys, it seemed like they wanted to renege on their promise. After all, what happened in the Dragon Martial Continent quickly spread. Everyone knew how powerful Kong Shinmu was now. He could actually fight Murong Lieni to a draw. With such terrifying strength, how could Luo En fight Kong Shinmu? It should be known that Murong Lieni was a genius of the ancient Phoenix clan. Even if many people were not familiar with her, from the battle strength she showed in the arena battle, she was definitely at the level of Gu Xinyue. That was a 6th grade disciple. She had the battle strength of a supreme god. As for Luo En, he was still quite a distance away from becoming a 6th class disciple. Therefore, it could be said that Luo En had completely lost confidence in challenging Jiang Shenwu, and had directly fled with Feng Baixue. It was said that they had gone to the front lines to fight against the other races. Regarding this, Kong Shinmu naturally did not believe it. So, he directly told the matter to Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon. When Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon finished dealing with her matters and came back with free time, he would properly deal with this matter. He could not go back on the original bet. At least, the value of the things that Kong Shinmu bought in the treasure pavilion that day added up to 200,000 to 300,000 gold dragon coins. If Feng Baixue did not take out this sum of compensation, Kong Shinmu would not let her off easily. Of course, Kong Shinmu did not take this matter to heart. Since there was nothing going on here, Kong Xinmu still needed to consolidate his temporary cultivation and strength. Therefore, he planned to return to the Dragon Martial Continent and continue searching for the members of the Devouring Dragon Group. On this trip, Gu Xinyue also followed Kong Xinmu. Gu Xinyue was also waiting for the mid-level ruins to open in 6 months. Gu Xinyue was a level 9 martial emperor. She had been waiting for the opening of a mid-level relic. How could she miss this opportunity? Of course, this matter was kept a secret. After all, the demon god race had only invited Kong Xinmu. Kong Xinmu would report to Emperor Shi and the mystical dragon to select the candidates for the trip. However, in the end, Kong Xinmu would still have to look over the candidates. This was because the demon god race was giving face to Kong Xinmu. Otherwise, even Emperor Shi and the divine dragon might not have been able to convince them. There were many geniuses like Emperor Shi and the divine dragon in the demon god race. A month later, the Dragon Martial Continent was located in the extreme south of the Dragon Emperor's kingdom. Kong Xinmu and Gu Xinyue pretended to be ordinary people and came to a mountain range in the Dragon Emperor's kingdom. Now that Kong Xinmu's cultivation realm had increased, the Black Dragon's consciousness could increase its sensing range according to his realm. Therefore, Kong Xinmu's speed in searching for the members of the Devouring Dragon Group was much faster. At this time, they found a young girl. This girl was called Yun Yiru. She was another highly talented dragon martial artist with a blood affinity of 65. It was a pity that Yun Yiru had yet to awaken the divine dragon's blood essence. In this Dragon Emperor's kingdom, she was considered a low-level character. She was born in a tribe and was only 15 years old. She was not yet at the age to awaken the divine dragon's blood essence. When Kong Xinmu found her, she was running around anxiously. She was a very gentle and petite girl. Upon questioning, he found out that she had an older sister who was taken away by force. Her entire tribe did not dare to make a sound and allowed her sister to be taken away. That was because the person who took her sister was a Dragon King's level cultivator. The leader of her tribe, the strongest one, was only a celestial dragon. How could she and her entire tribe dare to fight against a Dragon King's level cultivator? Moreover, the Dragon King's level cultivator seemed to be very cruel and had a Dragon Emperor as his backing. This Dragon Emperor had even returned to her, the Dragon Emperor's kingdom, to seek revenge. Not far from her tribe, in a mountain range outside the Dragon Emperor's kingdom, her sister had been taken to that mountain range. It was said that this Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Emperor's kingdom would duel with the Dragon Emperor behind the Dragon King's level cultivator. A duel between Dragon Emperors. To be honest, Kong Xinmu had never seen such a situation before and was rather interested. Yun Yiru, come with us. We can save your sister. Kong Xinmu and Gu Xinyue appeared before Yun Yiru and decided to help after listening to her explanation. How would Yun Yiru be willing to join the Devourer clan if this matter was not settled? Yun Yiru was rather surprised and baffled by Kong Xinmu and Gu Xinyue's appearance. Why would two people suddenly appear before her, saying that they had taken a liking to her talent and wanted her to go with them and bring her sister back? However, it was a critical moment and Yun Yiru could not think too much about it. She was very worried about her sister's safety, so she would probably agree to whatever terms Kong Xinmu suggested as long as her sister could be saved. All right, as long as you two can save my sister, I will go with you. Now, she really did not know where Kong Xinmu and Gu Xinyue were going to take her since they had taken a liking to her talent. If it was only Kong Xinmu, perhaps Yun Yiru would think that Kong Xinmu had taken a liking to her beauty. However, Kong Xinmu had Gu Xinyue with him now. There was no doubt that Gu Xinyue and Kong Xinmu were rather close. Therefore, Kong Xinmu could not be here for her beauty, could he? In fact, even if Kong Xinmu was here for her beauty, she could not do anything about it. She had not even awakened the Divine Dragon Clan's blood essence, and could not fight a dragon martial artist at all. With Yun Yiru's agreement, Kong Xinmu laughed heartily. He saw that there were many people around the tribe who were pointing at them. Yun Yiru's sister had been taken away not too long ago, and many of the dragon martial artists could only stare blankly. Now they seemed to have realized that Kong Xinmu and Gu Xinyue, two strangers, were trying to help Yun Yiru bring her sister back. This made these dragon martial artists rather disdainful. In their eyes, Kong Xinmu and Gu Xinyue were just young people. How could they be the savage Dragon King or even the Dragon Emperor when they looked so young? Chapter 4895. Of course, Kong Shinmu could not be bothered to explain to these people. After all, his attention was only on Yun Yiru. According to the Black Dragon's consciousness, there was no other talented person in the entire tribe. Of course, it would be great if Yun Yiru's sister was just as talented. He did not even transform into his divine dragon form. Together with Gu Xinyue, they brought Yun Yiru towards the direction where her sister was taken. The three of them took to the skies at an incredible speed. The dragon warrior tribe that Yun Yiru belonged to did not expect Kong Shinmu and Gu Xinyue to be able to fly so fast. Although they did not transform into their divine dragon form, they were actually faster than many Nirvana realm celestial dragons. Their tribe leader even felt that he could not keep up with Kong Shinmu and Gu Xinyue's speed. This made the people who were mocking Kong Shinmu and Gu Xinyue speechless. However, they did not realize anything. After all, Kong Shinmu and Gu Xinyue's level was much higher than theirs. It was not something they could easily imagine. That was why they did not say anything as they watched Yun Yiru being taken away by Kong Shinmu and Gu Xinyue. Although the trio's speed shocked them, they only thought that they were just a little stronger than their tribe leader. They never imagined that Kong Shinmu and the rest were at the level of Dragon King or even Dragon Emperor. Yun Yiru, on the other hand, was in a state of shock as she flew in the air. Her sister was a dragon warrior and the #1 prodigy within 1,000 miles. She had once brought her to soar in the sky, but at that time, even if her sister had transformed into a divine dragon, her speed wasn't this fast. It was as if they were traveling at lightning speed in the air. The three figures streaked across the sky at an extremely fast speed. And that was not all. After flying out of the territory of the tribe, Kong Shinmu brought the two women with him and directly teleported through space. He continuously used the wind shadow flowing flash technique, jumping through space with the two women. In an instant, they crossed a distance of nearly 1,000 miles. This was the border of the entire Red Flame Dragon country, a place that bordered another dragon country. In this place, there was a mountain called Green Lotus Mountain, which was the most natural barrier between the two Chi dragon countries. When my sister was taken away, the ferocious Dragon King seemed to have said that there were two dragon emperors fighting in the Green Lotus Mountains. However, the battle hasn't started yet. I don't know if anything happened to my sister. Yun Yiru was nervous. Don't worry. If nothing has happened to your sister, then nothing will happen to her. If something has already happened, then there's no point in thinking so much. Gu Xinyue said with a chuckle, covering her mouth. Kong Shinmu was speechless. Gu Xinyue's words were clear and she was stating the truth, but why did it sound so awkward? Regardless, Kong Shinmu encouraged Yun Yiru. Yun Yiru, it's about time you tell us about your sister. Yun Yiru nodded, no longer in a hurry. After all, the power that Kong Shinmu had displayed was far beyond what she knew. Even the Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor of the Red Flame Dragon country where she came from, the most powerful person in Crimson Flame Dragon country, might not be able to grasp space travel. It was said that only the strongest dragon martial artists in the world could perform such a feat. Therefore, after Kong Shinmu brought her through space, she knew that Kong Shinmu must be very strong, unlike Kong Shinmu who looked so young. At the very least, his ability did not match his age. This was a genius dragon martial artist who was much stronger than her sister. Yun Yiru quickly collected herself and told her about her sister as quickly as she could. Her sister's name was Yun Yue, a young prodigy with a bit of fame in Crimson Flame Dragon country. Yun Yue was 20 this year and had awakened the divine dragon's blood essence for 4 years. Her talent was renowned far and wide, and she was well known in many dragon martial artist cities nearby. Yun Yue, who had awakened 4 years ago, had started out as a celestial dragon's blood essence and was now on her way to becoming a holy dragon. This was what Yun Yiru said, but she did not know the specifics. After all, Yun Yiru was not even a dragon martial artist and had yet to awaken. There were many things that Yun Yue would not tell her. After all, telling her would only make her more troubled. Yun Yiru had only heard about it from outsiders. Advancing from a celestial dragon to a holy dragon in 4 years was a rare occurrence in some remote dragon martial artist tribes. Moreover, Yun Yue's cultivation realm had already reached a decent level. This was a fact that the entire tribe knew that Yun Yue was now a powerhouse who was about to face the Nirvana tribulation. If it were not for the fact that Yun Yue was no longer cultivating and developing in the tribe, she could have even become the tribe's chief. It was because of this talent that Yun Yue's fame spread far and wide, to the point that everyone in the area knew about her. When Yun Yue returned to the tribe to visit her sister, Yun Yiru, she happened to run into the ruthless Dragon King. Although Yun Yue was extremely talented, she could not put up much of a fight against the Dragon King and was taken away. Green Lotus Mountains. Kong Shinmu had already warped through space with the two girls and came close to the main peak of Green Lotus Mountains, Green Lotus Peak. He could feel the presence of the two Dragon Emperors from afar. Around the two Dragon Emperors, there were many Dragon Kings and Dragon martial artists who had not even reached Dragon King realm watching. This Dragon Emperor's duel seemed to have a great impact. One side was Crimson Flame Dragon Country's Dragon Emperor. If anything happened to Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor, the entire Crimson Flame Dragon Country would be in trouble. Therefore, many Dragon King level powerhouses of Crimson Flame Dragon Country had come to watch this duel. They wanted to ensure that when Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor was in danger, they could lend a helping hand and protect Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor. However, the opponent was another Dragon Emperor and seemed to be here for revenge. Could they protect Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor? No one knew. Kong Shinmu did not care about Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor. These were all normal developments in the Dragon Martial Continent. Kong Shinmu did not want to interfere, but he wanted Yun Yue to join the Dragon Devourer Regiment. Chapter 4896. 71 Compatibility with the Divine Dragon Blood meant that as long as there were sufficient cultivation resources, this dragon martial artist could reach the level of a peerless divine dragon. There was no one around Kong Shinmu with such a high compatibility. Of course, that was excluding Ran Ran. Ran Ran's compatibility was at 75. 71, however, had already surpassed everyone else around Kong Shinmu other than Ran Ran. Even a genius girl like Gu Xinyue only had a compatibility of 61, just enough to reach the first stage of the Super Divine Dragon. If he wanted to advance to the next level, he would need to break through the bottleneck. Although Jiang Shenwu could now use the method of transmission to help others break through the bottleneck, he did not need so many cultivation resources to forcefully break through. However, compatibility did not only mean when a dragon martial artist would hit a bottleneck, it also affected the martial artist's control over the divine dragon blood and their ability to consolidate their strength. A high compatibility would not only allow one to reach a higher upper limit, but they would also be able to unleash a stronger combat ability against someone of the same level. Although the difference was not huge, in a battle, the slightest difference was enough to affect the outcome in life and death. Therefore, when Kong Shinmu sensed that a genius with 71 compatibility had appeared in the Green Lotus Mountains up ahead, he was naturally delighted. Most importantly, he could sense that this genius's cultivation realm was not that high. Be it in terms of cultivation realm or the quality of the divine dragon's blood essence, it was Yun Yiru's older sister, Yun Yue. Kong Shinmu did not expect to meet such a genius at all. Of course, he was overjoyed, but he was still worried that Yun Yue had already suffered at the hands of the ruthless Dragon King who had abducted her. Therefore, he brought Yun Yiru and Gu Xinyue forward as fast as he could. What appeared before him was an extremely tall mountain. It was the main peak of the entire Green Lotus Mountains, named Green Lotus Peak. Around the clear Lotus Peak, Kong Shinmu could sense many Dragon King-level existences watching nervously. On the top of Green Lotus Peak, there were two experts at the Dragon Emperor realm confronting each other. It was the Dragon Emperor from the Red Flame Dragon Country. The Dragon Emperor of Red Flame Dragon Country and the Dragon Emperor of Red Flame, Tian Shao, who had come to seek revenge from the Dragon Emperor of Red Flame. The two of them had been confronting each other at the top of Green Lotus Peak, and they hadn't started fighting yet. No one knew what kind of grudges they had in the past. Kong Shinmu had no interest in any of this. He only wanted to save Yun Yue and leave. That was all. Whether or not the Dragon Emperor of Red Flame was of no concern to Kong Shinmu. After all, Yun Yue and Yun Yiru had no other relatives in the tribe. The others treated Yun Yue the same way the Jiang clan treated Kong Shinmu. They were all respectful but without much sense of belonging. They felt that Yun Yue was someone beyond their level and would not stay in the tribe in the future. In that case, she would not be of much use to the tribe. However, because of Yun Yue's talent, the entire tribe was envied by the surrounding tribes. They even made concessions on certain matters. This was something the other tribes could not see. Regardless, to Kong Shinmu, he only needed to take care of the sisters. He brought Gu Xinyue and Yun Yiru and flew over from mid-air. Such a grand entrance naturally caught the attention of the Dragon Emperor and Dragon King experts around Green Lotus Peak. At this time, the surrounding Dragon Kings were shocked. What they saw was Jiang Shenwu bringing the two girls with him. None of them had transformed into their mystical dragon forms. When they got close, Jiang Shenwu removed his mystical dragon form. Therefore, when they appeared before them, it looked like a young man with two girls. Such a team had suddenly appeared near Green Lotus Peak in the middle of Green Lotus Mountains. Did these three not know that Scarlet Flame Dragon Emperor and Tianshao Dragon Emperor were about to fight here? But in front of the two Dragon Emperors, the other Dragon Kings did not say much. Only a Dragon King from Scarlet Flame Dragon Country flew up and stopped in front of Kong Shinmu and the two girls. Clad in divine dragon armor, this person had transformed into a Dragon King's dragon form, bursting with authority. He stood in front of Kong Shinmu and the two girls sternly and said coldly, "Unauthorized personnel are prohibited from entering." Yun Yiru shuddered when she saw the man. She didn't recognize the middle-aged man in front of her. However, after transforming into a divine dragon, that 1,000 zhong long super existence possessed boundless might. It directly gave off an incomparably shocking feeling. The shock of facing a powerful dragon martial artist was enough to strike Yun Yiru like she was struck by lightning. After all, Yun Yiru was just a little girl who had not even awakened yet. Not only was she too young, but she had also not seen many powerful dragon martial artists. Therefore, it was normal for Yun Yiru to be afraid. However, to Kong Shinmu and Gu Xinyue, the Dragon King before them was nothing. Kong Shinmu glanced at the man and asked Yun Yiru, "Is this the Dragon King who took your sister away?" Yun Yiru was stunned by Kong Shinmu's question, but she quickly recalled that this young man named Kong Shinmu seemed to be someone who was not even afraid of the Dragon Emperor. Yun Yiru shook her head quickly and said, "It's not him, not him. The Dragon King who captured my sister was a green divine dragon after he transformed into a dragon. He looked very ferocious." These words made the middle-aged Dragon King feel a little confused. He could tell that the young man in front of him seemed to be looking for a Dragon King with two young girls. Moreover, it was a green divine dragon that looked very ferocious. The key was that he was a little conflicted. Putting aside the green mystical dragon, his mystical dragon body was purple. But didn't his mystical dragon look ferocious? Was it not mighty? The three young men before him were chatting so openly in front of him, as if they did not take him seriously at all. Of course, the middle-aged Dragon King could tell something from their conversation. He asked immediately, "Are you three looking for the evil Dragon King? He seems to have brought a girl back. Are you people of our Crimson Flame Dragon country? If so, please stay calm. Our Dragon Emperor will definitely defeat Dragon Emperor Tianshao. As long as Dragon Emperor Tianshao is defeated, the evil Dragon King will not dare to act recklessly as his subordinate. Young lady, your sister was taken away by the evil Dragon King, wasn't it? Don't worry, we'll definitely rescue her. This is our duty." The words were spoken so fluently that even Kong Shinmu was stunned. Chapter 4897. Kong Shinmu did not expect the situation to be so complicated. The demonic Dragon King, as Tianshao Dragon Emperor's subordinate, had captured Yun Yiru's sister, Yun Yue. Although he had captured Yun Yiru's sister, Yun Yue, he did not dare to do anything to Yun Yue under Scarlet Flame Dragon Emperor's orders. Everything would have to wait for the two Dragon Emperors to decide the victor. The two Dragon Emperors were still in a stalemate. Whether or not Yun Yue could be saved depended on whether Scarlet Flame Dragon Emperor could win. If he could defeat Tianshao Dragon Emperor, he would definitely not let Tianshao Dragon Emperor go, and Yun Yue would be saved. Even the demonic Dragon King could only run for his life, and would not be able to do anything to Yun Yue. However, if Tianshao Dragon Emperor won, then Tianshao Dragon Emperor could even topple the entire Scarlet Flame Dragon country. Under such circumstances, Yun Yue would be nothing to Scarlet Flame Dragon Emperor. Therefore, the current situation was dependent on the battle between the two Dragon Emperors. Who would emerge victorious would be able to affect the series of events that would follow. Kong Shinmu did not think so much. He was here to take Yue away and had no interest in the battle between Tianshao Dragon Emperor and Scarlet Flame Dragon Emperor. Green Lotus Peak. Dragon Emperor Tianshao had already transformed into a Thunder Divine Dragon. His 500-foot-long divine dragon body soared above the peak. In front of him, the Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor had transformed into a Fire Divine Dragon. His entire body was covered in raging flames, and he was also a divine dragon that was more than 500 feet long. His imposing manner wasn't any weaker than Dragon Emperor Tianshao. At the foot of Green Lotus Peak, the Dragon Kings were only on guard but did not transform into dragons. Kong Shinmu brought the two girls and followed Scarlet Flame Dragon Emperor's loyal Dragon King to the foot of Green Lotus Peak. There, he saw the demonic Dragon King and the young genius girl, Yue, who was bound by the demonic Dragon King's dragon weapon. Sister! Yunyiru could not help but cry out when she saw Yue. She was still young and could not keep her cool in such a situation. Jiang Shenwu, on the other hand, was stunned when he saw Yue. No wonder the evil Dragon King had taken a liking to Yue. She was an outstanding beauty. Yue was a dragon warrior with outstanding talent. She had a lot of prestige in the area. Even in this kind of situation, Yue was able to remain calm in the face of danger. However, when she saw Yunyiru, her expression changed again and again. She glanced at Kong Shinmu and Gu Xinyue and realized that she did not know either of them. However, such young dragon martial artists could not be more powerful than the Dragon Emperor. Could they? Now, the two Dragon Emperors were going to duel. The outcome of this duel was not just Yue's life but the safety of the entire Crimson Flame Dragon country. The entire country was tied to this duel. If Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor won, then everything would go back to normal and Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor's prestige would rise even higher. If Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor lost, then Crimson Flame Dragon country would be overthrown. At the foot of Green Lotus Peak, the two Dragon Emperors did not notice Kong Shinmu's arrival with the two girls. They just stood facing each other and chatted about some things, such as past grudges, and most importantly, what improvements they had made recently. In fact, as enemies, both sides knew each other's methods very well. However, the appearance of the demonic creature battlefield in the last 2 years had greatly improved some dragon martial artists. In this way, whether it was the Crimson Flame Dragon Emperor or the Sky Roar Dragon Emperor, they couldn't figure out each other's exact strength. They could only tell from the surface that both of them had inherited the blood essence of the Divine Dragon at the 3rd level of the Dragon Emperor. It was obvious that these two Dragon Emperors had not participated in the last 2 duels. Otherwise, they would have recognized Kong Shinmu. After all, Kong Shinmu's performance in the duels had been too stunning. But now, Jiang Shenwu's appearance in front of them did not attract their attention. Your sister is not in danger for now. Jiang Shenwu looked at Yue's condition. She was only bound by the dragon weapon and was unharmed. She didn't seem to have been molested either. He couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. I'll do it. The corners of Gu Xinyue's lips curled up. She could not be bothered to wait. Without even transforming into a dragon, she raised her hand and the talent of the Nightmare Dragon appeared, enveloping the evil Dragon King. Then, a mighty force came crashing down, completely shattering the dragon weapons, binding Yue into pieces. This dragon weapon was only an ordinary one, not even a holy dragon weapon. How could it withstand Gu Xinyue's attack? Then, she raised her small hand and brought Yue back to her side. This series of movements were as smooth as flowing water, and it was so fast that no one could react in time. The Yaoxia Dragon King was a middle-aged man with a face full of muscles. However, he was enveloped by the Nightmare Dragon's innate ability, and fell into a dreamland that seemed to be real. Even the dragon weapon he had used to bind Gu Xinyue had been destroyed, but he had not sensed anything. He was still immersed in the dream. The difference between him and Gu Xinyue was too great. That was why Gu Xinyue had saved Yue with a single move. Everyone in the surroundings was astounded. What was this? It was too terrifying. None of the Dragon Kings present could react in time. By the time they realized what had happened, Yue had already been rescued and returned to Gu Xinyue. Even Yunyiru and Yue were dumbfounded. They had not expected things to be so simple. While the sisters were still in a daze, the straightforward Dragon King who had brought them here, the Dragon Emperor of Crimson Flame, had already reacted. He had not expected Gu Xinyue to possess such terrifying power, subduing the evil Dragon King with just one move? This was definitely at the Dragon Emperor's level. More importantly, this beautiful girl had not even transformed into a dragon and was already so powerful. It was truly difficult. What's going on? By the time Yue came to her senses, she was already out of the evil Dragon King's clutches. She felt like she was in a dream. Looking back, she saw the evil Dragon King lying on the ground in agony, clutching his head and struggling on the ground. However, no matter how hard he struggled, he could not transform into a Dragon King. This was the Nightmare Dragon's talent. It could bestow sweet dreams, but it could also bestow nightmares, causing people to hallucinate and break down. Gu Xinyue had only just revealed her skills. A mere Dragon King was not worthy of her full power. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.